maybe a little different in New England, but it was pretty much the same everywhere you go. So I'm just going to say fans. Not even going to say Titan fans. I'm just going to say fans. And so I have said numerous times this week, I can't do 4 hours today and tomorrow, so 8 hours total. I can't do 8 hours of previewing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I can't. They have Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. Who do they have on defense? It does not matter who they have on defense. The Jags are awful, and their coach is a mess. And the organization, which without all the drama of this week, usually has a bunch of bushfires anyways that are a big issue there. And so I've said this week, I think they're going to go to Jacksonville, and I think they're going to kill the Jags. And I think they should go to Jacksonville. And I think they should kill the Jags. And anything short of them going to Jacksonville and killing the Jags is a major concern of mine. A major. Put it in all capital letters. Give me a final score that is not a throttling.
Like 24-14.
Major concern. Major. And so a lot of people are saying to me, and I saw this in the text line, and I saw this on Twitter, and they're saying, well, Jared, how after that Jets game last week can you not look at this team and expect them to blow anybody out? I mean, Jacksonville played a tough game on Thursday night against Cincinnati. How can you sit there and look at this Titan team after what they did to the Jets, giving up 7 sacks, allowing 27 points to a team that averages 6, and expect them to go out and blow out Jacksonville? And I'm going to answer it the same way how you feel about your Titans, week to week. Remember last week when I picked the Jets? And everybody said, oh, come on, Jared. And I said, look, I am scared to death of the Jets. I said this after the Colts game. I said, I am scared to death of the Jets. And everybody, oh, no, it'll be fine. It's the Jets. We can rest A.J. Julio. We can even rest Derrick Henry, and we'll be fine. And I kept telling you all, look, this is the NFL, people. Like, this is the NFL. So I saw the Titans play horribly on Sunday. Just like you saw the Titans play horribly on Sunday. Just like Caroline saw the Titans play horribly on Sunday. Just like Ian saw the Titans play horribly on Sunday. Just like the Titans saw the Titans play horribly on Sunday. But that doesn't mean that they're going to play as horribly last Sunday as they will this Sunday. Let's take the Urban Meyer stuff out of it. The worst thing that happened to Jacksonville was the Titans losing to the Jets in embarrassing fashion last Sunday. Because, again, it's a week-to-week league. And so the Titans, I bet, are going to have the best week of practice. I bet you that they're going to be so focused. All those pass protection issues, whether it's the wide receivers not getting open, whether it's guys getting beat on the line of scrimmage, whether it's not knowing the protections, whether it's Tannehill getting tricked at the line of scrimmage, which we'll get into in a little bit, whether it's Derrick Henry and Jeremy McNichols, whatever it may be. I bet you they have the most focused week after getting embarrassed by the Jets. All those little things that we're not happy about after the Indianapolis game, I bet you they fix those this Sunday, because that's the NFL. Growing up as a Titan fan, and this even continues on for me, the number one thing that I always hoped the team that the Titans were about to play would do, unless it was Indianapolis or Baltimore back in the day when they were in the same division, the thing I would hope that they would do is I would hope that they would win the week before they play the Titans. So say pick a random AFC team, Raiders. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, the Raiders play the Broncos this week, and then they play the Titans. Go Raiders. Because the last thing you want is the Raiders to get beat or embarrassed, and then the Raiders to spend a whole week sitting there and preparing and stewing and steaming and upset and everything before they play you. Kansas City plays Buffalo on Sunday Night Football. Go Bills. City on Sunday Night Football. And then Buffalo can get in their high horse and just say, hey, here we are, the kings of the NFL. Go ahead and crown us. And then in Monday Night Football, you beat them. Best thing that could happen to the Titans. So I just look at this after the embarrassment of the Jet game, and I think if they don't go out there on Sunday and put together their best effort so far of the season, then we've got, as I said, in all caps, major problems. That's why I said to you yesterday, and I said to you, the fans, yesterday, that if they go to Jacksonville and they lose this week, I will be calling for jobs on Monday. I don't know whose job. Or I think the better way I said it was somebody is going to lose their job on Monday, and it might be me. I mean, it might be me if they don't win on Sunday against Jacksonville. Yes, Jacksonville is an NFL team. Yes, they've got NFL players, albeit bad NFL players. Yes, maybe they're rallying around the Urban Meyer situation, but I kind of doubt it. Jacksonville and rallying around are not two things that normally go together. Different story if it's New England. Different story if it's Green Bay. Jacksonville and rallying around usually don't happen. So I expect the Titans to put together their best week of practice this week. I expect them to be the most focused they've been. I expect them to coach better than they coached against the Jets. And quite frankly, I just expect them to beat Jacksonville. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you should go in there and dominate. And so if they don't, then it's time for me to hit the panic button. And when it comes to the panic button, the real question for me is, how would you define panic button? For me, I'm hitting the panic button as in, I don't think this team's a legit AFC contender. So far through 4 games, I don't know how you can argue that this team is a legit AFC contender with Buffalo and Kansas City and the Chargers and Baltimore and Cleveland. You can't make that argument. If you went to ESPN and you said, I think the Titans are the 4th or 5th best team in the AFC right now after you lost to the Jets, they laugh you out the building. And it wasn't just a one-game aberration. They didn't play well against the Cardinals. They didn't play well against the Colts. They didn't play well against the Jets. And you can argue for a half they didn't play well against the Seahawks. And if the Seahawks lose to the Rams tonight, they're 2-3. So it's not like we've seen the Titans put on a performance this season that would make us think they're AFC contenders. And yet, I still have to believe that when the dust settles, Vrabel will have this team coached up. Your quarterback and running back are too good. Your defense is better than they were last year. Knock on wood. Your secondary is better than they were last year. That by the end of the year, you'll be an AFC contender. That is where I am today. You lose this week, panic button. Because if you lose this week, I mean, you may be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like, if you lose to the Jets and the Jags in back-to-back weeks, like when the power rankings come out, you should be like 26th.
Well, because who did you think would be the 2 worst teams going into this season?
Well, I mean, Houston would
yeah, that's true. That's true. But I mean,
but the Jets and the Jags were the hallmark of
both of them could be in that conversation.
Yes.
So if you lose to both of those teams, you become those teams.
And now once you get to that point and you spent 5 weeks of the NFL season and you haven't put together one good performance, then you kind of know. And I just don't think in my heart, I just don't think the Titans are that bad. Now, I don't think the Titans are as good as we spent all summer hyping them up to be. Mm-hmm. I think they have a chance to get better and maybe eventually be there. But as far as any idea, as far as the Titans are concerned, about being competitors in 2021, you lose this week, it's over. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think they've got too many good players. I think they've got too much experience. I think they've got a coach who is too good to let them fall to this depth of losing to that team with everything going on with them. So for everyone out there that says, well, how can you pick the Titans to beat the Jags? Or how can you feel comfortable about the Titans beating the Jags after what they did to the Jets? This is my point. I knew they were too cocky. I knew they were playing sloppy last week. You get embarrassed like that, things start to change. And I think they will this week. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll get your reaction. We'll get Caroline's reaction here on the program as we get rocking and rolling. 615-737-1025. Plus, there is one thing I keep hearing as far as the Titans are concerned. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I am sick of hearing this, so I'm never going to listen to this, and I'm not going to say this. But I think sometimes people need to maybe analyze what they're hearing and not just get mad if it isn't what they want to hear regarding the Titans. We'll get to that coming up next. Invigorate Health, invigoratehealthtn.com. If you're feeling old, if you're feeling fat, if you're feeling lazy, if you're feeling bloated, if you're feeling like you're 47 years old and you really just wish you were 25 again, you need to talk to my friends at Invigorate Health. It may be your testosterone. You don't know. I don't know. But their trained physicians and nurses will find out because that's what they do. Maybe you need their IV therapy, which they offer. They also have a concierge service with that. Maybe you just can't get rid of, no matter how much you work out, that stubborn belly fat. Well, with the M-Sculpt Neo, where they've got their non-invasive electromagnetic device, you can lose 25% of that, or lose 30% of that fat and gain 25% of muscle right in those stubborn areas. I absolutely love Invigorate Health because they take people who are just not feeling like themselves anymore and turn you back into the way that you used to feel. Again, feel like you're 25 years old. Don't feel like you're 55 or 65, or you can lose 1% of your testosterone every year after the age of 30. So go get your levels checked. And if there's something that needs to be done, Invigorate Health is the place you want to be. Invigorate Health TN. Also, next Wednesday and Thursday, my friends at Invigorate Health will have their mobile unit at the Farmhouse at 210 Almond Street, a few blocks away from Bridgestone Arena. Why? Because they're going to be offering discounted COVID tests. Anyone going to any event at Bridgestone Arena, but the Preds Thursday night opener, you're going to need to show a negative COVID test or proof of vaccination. So everybody, if you go Wednesday or Thursday to the Farmhouse and you get tested with a discounted COVID test, you'll also get a $10 gift card to Farmhouse. They will be on site Wednesday from 4 to 7 and Thursday from 4 to 6:30. So get that COVID test done right then and there. That's Invigorate Health, invigoratehealthtn.com.
Benefit of the loss to on Sunday that nobody's going to be overlooking a team that's 0-4 at this point for your guys?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, again, we move the ball and we can go back and dissect the game, but, I wouldn't say that there would be a good thing about ever losing. Try to continue to tell our team that we're third in the league in first downs on offense. We just have turned it over, and we haven't, scored as many touchdowns as we should have down in the red zone. Defensively, we've given up fifth fewest. We're fifth in first downs allowed, but we haven't gotten enough turnovers and given up big plays. So that's the things that we're focused on.
There you go. That was Vrabel talking about, hey, we're doing well. We just haven't really gotten there yet. And here come the Jacksonville Jags. No more excuses. Like, I don't care about the stats anymore. I don't even care about the stats now. I don't even know what the Titans are. Total offense, total defense, special. I don't know. And guess what? I don't care. I know what the Titans are right now. They're an average NFL team. They're 2-2. They show signs where they could be good. They show signs where they could be bad. They've got a lot of risky players on their roster. Guys that have injury histories, older guys that may be regressing a little bit. But you lose to Jacksonville, then I know what you are. Like, I think you're average now. You lose to Jacksonville, I know what you are. I think we all know what you are at that point. What do you think?
I mean, I just don't think there's any excuse for losing to Jacksonville. I mean, you lose to the Jets in Jacksonville in back-to-back weeks, and I don't really know how you feel about the rest of the season. Am I counting out the fact that maybe, you lose to the Jets and the Jags, that's the kick that the Titans needed, and they win out and they go to the AFC Championship? That could happen. But based off of what we have seen from the Titans so far, even the wins on their schedule so far haven't been pretty wins. So the Titans have yet to put out a solid performance. You lose to two of the worst teams in the league. What can you really expect from this team moving forward? I think that people just kind of know what they are, and then anything from there is either a positive or a negative.
I just can't expect them to be that bad. I cannot expect them to be that bad that they would lose to Jacksonville.
I don't think that they are lose to the Jets in Jacksonville in back-to-back weeks. I don't think that's what this team is. I
mean, I'm telling you, panic button is pressed and locked in if they lose Sunday. And I don't expect them to lose. I mean, I think the Titans, and you know me, like I picked the Titans to play uglier with Indianapolis than they should. I picked them to lose to the Jets. I think the Titans are going to blow out Jacksonville on Sunday.
They should.
Like, I feel
if
like
it's a Bengals situation, I don't think I will be very happy.
Here's the problem with the Titans is that, and I think the fans are a reflection of this, is it feels like far too often they need a nice piece of humble pie. And they got it this past week with the Jets. But I feel like far too often over the years, they've needed that kick in the bum. Where it's like, hey, everybody wake up. Here's your little kick in the butt. Now get back to work. And I hate the fact that it feels like that at least 2 times a season we have to have this discussion with the Titans. But it is who they are. And so I think they got their serving of humble pie. I think it came to them this past week in the Jets game. I think their practice against Jacksonville will be focused, and they're not going to – if they had beaten the Jets, I could see them, kind of laughing about the Urban Meyer situation and maybe not taking Jacksonville as seriously. But I don't think I don't think that they would take Hillsborough High School not seriously if they had lost to the Jets the week before. So I think they're going to win. There was one thing I saw yesterday that I literally just rolled my eyes at. Somebody said, our podcast is the best podcast. First of all, I can't tell you how many people have a podcast that covers the Titans.
World's best cup of coffee.
Podcast. And I'm not knocking podcasts. People listen to them. We podcast this radio show. But I can't tell you how many people have how many Titan podcasts exist?
I mean, probably hundreds.
Like hundreds. And people will text in or tweet in or call in. And I said this on my podcast, and it's like, okay, good. Like, good. But this show is a very popular drive time afternoon Nashville radio show. And so people with podcasts are saying, this is why people like Jared Stillman overreact to the Jets' loss. First of all, let me just address this. I did not overreact to the Jets' loss. I did not say the season was over. I did not call for anybody to be fired. I am the only person who expected the Jets' loss. I had some podcast tell me on Sunday when I tweeted out that I thought the Jets were going to win, that said, Titans are going to win in a blowout. This is why you're a dummy. It's like, okay, podcast. Now I got podcasts saying that I'm overreacting. It's a podcast. Podcast. All these podcasts. And all these podcasts want to do is talk about what I had to say. So I'm just going to say it like this. You should have been thoroughly disappointed with the Tennessee Titans after they lost to the Jets. I think you should be thoroughly disappointed with the Tennessee Titans through 4 games. Because I don't think they've played a good game yet. And that includes Seattle, where I thought, they really showed some stones at the end of the game. But I don't think they played a good game. They fumbled inside of their own 10. They allowed 2 busted coverages for touchdowns. This is the NFL, folks. You can't win doing that. So, yes, maybe I'm more critical, but I don't think I'm overreacting to anything. 4 games through the season, you all are the ones that told me, trade for Julio Jones and Super Bowl, here we come. I put up a poll the day that they traded for Julio, and I said, what are your expectations? And 39%, and there were 3 choices, so this was the highest ranked choice. 39% of the people said Super Bowl. Highest ranked choice. If it were a presidential primary, that's your nominee. So you all said, hey, Super Bowl. We've seen 4 games. Nothing about this team right now, except for the running back, says Super Bowl. So am I reacting to 4 games that we saw? Yes. Am I overreacting? I don't think so.
I think it's also subjective, but I feel like a loss to the New York Jets elicits a pretty big response.
They do suck.
They do suck, and the Titans looked horrendous against a team that sucks. So if you want to, say it's an overreaction, that's fine. But I feel like losing to the Jets deserves an overreaction, and I don't even really know what an overreaction would be, short of saying, the Titans season is completely over, fire everyone, and get rid of every single player.
I didn't say any of that.
No. But that's an overreaction. Being incredibly disappointed and mad at the Titans' performance against the Jets that they ultimately lost, that's a reaction.
All I said is we just have to start holding this team more accountable. We just need to, instead of every time Tannehill screws up, you blame it on somebody else, maybe you need to think, hey, it was not a good choice at Indianapolis to throw that ball right over the middle, right into the arms of the defender. That's all I'm saying. Or maybe when Vrabel gets up there and gives you that smart ass, I don't want to be here, don't want to take questions attitude, that maybe you say, hey, maybe there's another side to this. That's all I'm saying. That's all I said after the Jets game. And a lot of you all do that, but you guys go from one side to the other side. When they drafted Caleb Farley, I was like, I don't know. Not sure about this. And you all got mad at me. And I got to say, I think that the reason that this show has been so popular for so long is because we tell the truth. Like, we tell the truth. We don't have to bring on broadcasters to sit there and tell us what we already know is not true. About, well, you know what? I'll tell you, I saw this and this Guys, the Titans are not paying their bills right now. What the expectation was and what they've put on the field through 4 games is not good enough. And it's not good enough for me, and it shouldn't be good enough for you. And I don't think that's an overreaction. I think that is a reaction. And that's all I'm saying. 615-737-1025. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam Vingan has a fire Pred story I want to get to. So we're going to do that in a second. But let's get to your phones first. Caroline Fenton on our text line. What do we have?
Ben texts in and says, have some Titans fans and players gotten cocky before? Absolutely. Have they also been overhyped after the Julio trade and could be in store for an average season? It's very possible. I cannot see them dominating any team right now with how they've looked up to this point.
So here's the thing I think people have to understand, as I said earlier, that this is a week-to-week league. Right now, the Titans don't look great. And some of that may be because they're not good enough. But the idea that they can't go into Jacksonville and blow them out on Sunday, I think is crazy. They could have blown out the Jets on Sunday. They didn't. But they could have blown out the Jets. If they had scored a touchdown on their first drive and the third drive, instead of kicking 2 field goals, now it's 17-0. And if it's 17-0, the game is over. That kid, quarterback, is not throwing them back down from 17-0. Mm-hmm. So if you do that, the game is over. Now, I think that what happens when you get embarrassed is you practice harder and you focus harder. Floyd's daughter-in-law told me that if he was the general manager and they lost a game like that, they as a family would not talk to him until Thursday. And Ian, I believe it. I mean, I completely believe that he would. That's how these guys work. Mm-hmm. So all those little details that they've been screwing up. Think about this. Taylor Lewan got embarrassed week 1, didn't get embarrassed week 2, didn't get embarrassed week 3. Because that mental focus. Well, I guess he didn't play week 2. Didn't get embarrassed week 3. That focus, you got to focus. And it happens in this league.
I think that's another element of, and I know we do not get mad at anyone for doing something that they haven't done yet. Sure. But speaking hypothetically, if the Titans do lose against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think that's another element of it that I'm going to be a little bit concerned about is where your mind's at. Because I know exactly where the Jags' mindset is, and it's everywhere probably but the field because of all of this drama surrounding Urban Meyer. So where's this Titans team that's able to bounce back, that's able to come back from a loss, or that's able to play up to their opponent? Where's the leadership on this team to be able to say, okay, we got embarrassed. We got to get our stuff together this week?
That's a fair question that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
Steve is up next here on Derrick Henry. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Jared, how are you?
Good.
Good. First of all, let me say that I've talked to you before with Floyd and even back with George with Floyd, and I'm so sorry, and I know how it affects not only you but all of us.
Yeah, it's been tough.
So I just wanted to say that. And Caroline, I've enjoyed
thank you, Steve.
Listening to you also. My daughter's name's Caroline, actually.
Oh, thank
you. But anyway, we're talking about the great start that Henry's getting off to and rushing and so forth, and, he'll be able to rush for 3,000 yards and 300 in a game and all that. But how will it play into it with the fact that he's doing better in the passing game? And let's say he only has 100 yards rushing, but he has 100 yards in the receiving game in a game.
So I think we're getting too carried away with Derrick Henry. Thank you for your call, Steve, and thank you for your kind words about Floyd. I think we're getting too carried away with Derrick Henry in the passing game. It's like, he shows that he can catch the ball and not be a total clunk as soon as he catches it. And everyone's like, what about 100 yards in receiving in the game? Derrick Henry is not a 100-yard receiving a game running back. Like, what? Like, let's slow down. I thought he was going to talk about the workload with Derrick Henry because that's starting to become a concern. That is, and you know me, I say, hey, max out the credit card. But it is also being reckless. But Derrick is a pass catcher. To me, Derrick as a pass catcher is gravy. I'm still concerned about him in pass protection. I'm still just a little worried that it is too much on his plate to ask him to know all the protections. I mean, when the Titans first moved here, Eddie George was a much better receiver out of the backfield, much more likely to see him on the field on third down than Derrick Henry. But in third down passing situations, usually Eddie was off the field and Rodney Thomas was on the field. And I think that was by design. Rodney spent all week working on the passing game. Eddie was focused on carrying the football. I think Derrick's the same way. I'm not getting too worked up about Derrick catching the football. It's nice, and I think anytime you can get him the ball in space, find a way to do it,
100%.
do it. But I wouldn't sit there and worry about Derrick Henry and his receiving accolades. 615-737-1025. Okay, so the Predators start 1 week from today. And something that everybody told us was going to happen in July hasn't happened. And apparently, according to Adam Vingan, it's not even close to happening. And it's a big deal. So I want to get to that next. 615-737-1025. And we'll take your calls in on it later. And we'll give away Preds tickets this hour. And we got TD coming up at 3 o'clock. Is there any and else that I need to add to this?
I don't know, but that's a whole lot of ands.
And join us in partnering with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Light the Night. Light the Night brings light to the darkness of cancer through hope, research, and support for patients and families. Through this inspirational nationwide movement, we raise awareness and funding for groundbreaking research and treatment options to eliminate cancer. Nashville's Light the Night will be virtual and take place on November 4th. Learn more at lightthenight.org/TN.
Is it still a goal of yours to finish your career here and to be a part of this team? Obviously, that's something that, the team seems to be interested in. Are you still wanting to be, a long-term member of the Predators, or is this kind of a wait-and-see approach?
I mean, I have no rush to sign. I mean, I have a full year. I mean, I'm not looking to, I don't know. I feel like you have to play your contract out. I mean, obviously, I have a full more year. I love this place. I loved every minute since I got here, and I definitely feel like we have a really good opportunity to make something great, and not just this year, but going forward as well. And then, it is a business, so everything is going to have to be handled properly like that.
That was Philip Forsberg talking about his contract. Adam Vingan in The Athletics got some juicy details.
It is juicy.
I'm just going to read directly from Adam Vingan in The Athletic.
Go for it.
So Philip Forsberg's contract's up at the end of the year. We were told on July 1st, or whatever this year's July 1st was, because it got pushed back, that the day that the Predators could start renegotiating with Mattias Ekholm and Philip Forsberg, that we could see a deal get done. And we didn't hear about a deal getting done. And then a deal didn't get done. And 3 years ago, when it was Ryan Ellis's contract, they got it done right before the start of training.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that has already passed. 2 years ago, they got it done like in the middle of November with Yossi. And even then, I wasn't totally comfortable with it, but okay. I wasn't going to trade Roman Yossi, so, whatever. Forsberg, though, according to Adam Vingan, quote, is in no rush to resign, he says, which Predators general manager David Poile probably does not want to hear. Forsberg's agent, J.P. Barry, told The Athletic that contract talks with the Predators have not yet started.
Wow.
It then says, quote, I have a full year. I feel like you have to play your contract out, Forsberg said,
Which
is
also,
the clip we just had.
That is such BS.
Well,
I feel like I have to
it is.
play my contract out.
Sure.
No, you don't.
But Forsberg's not going to sit there and say that this is him creating leverage.
Yes.
Like, he's doing the right thing.
Yes.
Because that's what you should do. Because at the end of the day, Philip Forsberg has all the leverage. Fine, I'll go to market. And if I go to market, someone might offer me $9 million a season. Mm-hmm. And if they do, you lose me for nothing. And if they did that, like I would say if we took what was the poll that, like I don't know if I can trust the Adam Vingan Athletic poll, which had, I think, what was it, like 60% of the fans said Poile was doing a good job. And 40% said they wanted to fire Poile.
Yes.
Okay, if you lose Philip Forsberg for nothing, this now becomes 75-25. They want to run Poile out of here. Mm-hmm. Like that is not an option, at least not to me. Like if that happens, obviously if I've owned this team, I've already said how I feel about Poile. But if I own this team and Philip Forsberg goes out the door and I get nothing, a la Ryan Suter, David Poile's going out there with him. And he may go before Forsberg gets out there. I may be able to re-sign Forsberg before he hits the market. That's neither here nor there. So Forsberg's just creating leverage. Adam writes, this is more than just re-signing Forsberg, who has been the Predators' leading goal scorer with 177 goals and 379 points since becoming a full-time player in 2014. It feels like the near-term future of the franchise hinges on these negotiations. As one veteran talent evaluator put it, pay him or rebuild. The talent evaluator wondered if Forsberg could receive a contract similar to the 8-year, $56 million contract that Gabriel Landeskog signed with Colorado on the eve of free agency. It was a steep discount, according to Evolving Hockey, which projected a cap hit north of $9.5 million. At the end of it, Adam Vingan writes, the Predators, whose salary cap situation is problematic, also have to ask themselves if investing in Forsberg long-term is wise. For as talented as Forsberg is, he has missed at least 15 games because of injury in 3 of the past 4 seasons and has not taken the next step as a scorer. At his age, Forsberg probably is what he is, a streaky player who tops out around 30 goals. The end is, if there's any uncertainty about whether Forsberg will resign before the March 21st trade deadline, the Predators must move him. They absolutely cannot lose him for nothing. That would turn the competitive rebuild into a full-scale one. Now, I have argued that the Predators have needed to enter the rebuild phase for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand what David Poile's talking about when he says competitive rebuild, even if he doesn't articulate it entirely well. But the truth is, what he wants to do is he wants to get about 3 or 4 players that were on that Cup team. Yossi, Ekholm, Forsberg. Like, he's going to have Johansson and Duchesne, even though he doesn't want them. and then throw Granlund in there because they're obsessed with him, even though I think Granlund's an average player. So they want those guys and Saros. And then the rest is, okay, now let's fill it in with young guys. Let's fill in Tomasino, and let's fill in Tolvanen, and let's fill in Carrier, and let's fill in Fabro, although who knows what they think about Fabro anymore. But let's fill in with those guys and get some more young guys in here, and those draft picks will eventually become players. And okay. Because here's the thing. If Yossi stays at his level and Ekholm stays at his level, and I don't foresee that changing, if those two guys stay at their levels, Saros is adequate enough in goal, which is questionable, but we'll see. And Forsberg stays at his level, and Tomasino and Tolvanen become superstars, you got a team. Now, that's a big if, but that's what happened to Boston. Boston won the Cup in 11. They went back in 13. They had to tear it down a little bit on the fly, but the same guys that got them there in 11 and 13, Bergeron, Marchand, Chara, Tuukka Rask, those guys all stayed. And everybody else, Dennis Seidenberg and Nathan Horton and Milan Lucic, and those guys left, and David Pasternak and Charlie McAvoy, and those guys filled in. So that's what the Predators are going to try to do, which is fine. Doesn't always work, but it's fine. But the truth is this. The real question is, are you willing to do something for Forsberg that you wouldn't do for a player of his caliber in order to keep yourself from going into a full-blown rebuild minus Yossi? Or do you go into the full-blown rebuild? Because you're not willing to do that for Forsberg, and you're not going to hamstring yourself with another long-term contract for a player who never produces at the level of the contract.
Well, I don't think that Forsberg is going to be so much in the negotiation phase. I think that the Predators are going to want to be, because they're going to say, hey, look, you've been hurt in the past. You're getting up there in age, and no movement clause and what X dollar amount of salary just is not in the cards. But I think Forsberg looks at it as, okay, this team is in a competitive rebuild, but a rebuild nonetheless.
Sure.
So how much success can I really get here in Nashville? How much can I win a cup in Nashville, because I'm not getting any younger? So I think Philip Forsberg is going to want that big time contract, but he's looking at it okay, if they're not going to give it to me, then I'm going to hit free agency and I'll get picked up by a team that may or may not have a better chance of me winning the cup, and they'll give me that dollar amount that I want.
Right. It's like, if you don't give me what I want, somebody else probably
will.
And I'm at least going to see if somebody else will.
Right.
But so here's the question, though. Are you willing to give it to him? Because I'm not.
I don't think I would be.
I'm not. I'm willing to give it to Ekholm.
I mean, it's like I said, he's been hurt in the past, and he will continue to get hurt.
He's a B-level player. He's a B-level player. He's a good B-level player.
Yeah, he's great.
But he's a B-level player. And you're going to have to pay him like an A-level player. And I think they're paying B-level players A-level money already. Sure, if you could
and
get
they're
rid of Matt
handicapped
Duchene,
back by that already.
If you could get rid of Matt Duchene, then you could do whatever you want with Forsberg. Because you can have a guy that's not living up to his high-end contract, but he's a leader, and he means this to the team, and he means that. And here's the other thing. Don't be surprised this year if Philip Forsberg lights it up.
Oh, he's playing for his contract.
Lights it up.
I kind of expected that from A.J. Brown this year, too.
And I can expect all the calls and all the texts, because that line will be him, Johansson, and Duchene. And all the calls and all the texts will be, we can't let Forsberg go because it made all these other guys so much better, Jared. And that's gonna be what happens. I mean, I can see it coming.
Well, he knows exactly what's at stake. You know, he can stay here in Nashville. He can get a no-movement clause. He can get $8-9 million a year if he plays his butt off.
Now, I don't think Forsberg is like these other guys that get their contract and then got fat and happy, because he already got a $36 million 6-year deal a couple years ago. And, you know, he's played the same the whole time. But I think this will be his best year that he plays for you, maybe ever. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So that's the question that we have. We'll get to your texts on it. We'll get to your calls. If you've got a Preds thought, get it in now, because we're going to spend about 20 minutes or so on this, and then TD's coming up at 3 o'clock. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, and we'll give away some Preds tickets in the next segment. TriStar Moving, my official movers. I love TriStar Moving. I've been telling you about TriStar now for literally a year, and what a year it has been. Like most people before TriStar, I absolutely hated moving. But thanks to TriStar Moving, they make the entire process so simple. There's a reason why their motto is TriStar Movers with 5-star service. From the initial phone call to the final signature, moving was a breeze. They offer home protection covering your floors, banisters, railings, door jambs, and even the doors themselves. They're always upping the game when it comes to mover training. All the furniture and all the belongings were wrapped perfectly, and mattresses were put in protective bags, TVs in protective boxes. They do it all. Their owners, Garrett and Robert, hold a very high standard, and that's why their company, TriStar Moving, is on the rise and on the rise quickly. It's the high standard they hold. If you're looking to move, give my friends at TriStar Moving a call, 615-640-1219. Visit their website at nationalmoving.org/radio, where they'll give you 5% off your entire move. That's TriStar Moving, 615-640-1219. Or visit them at nationalmoving.org/radio. Tell them Jared Stillman sent you for 5% off. TriStar Moving, my official movers.
The OC from the right circle, the shot deflected in, and the Predators tally on the power play to take a 2-1 lead.
Well, that's how you draw it up. You get the point shot, and you get a guy who's going to try to block it. It leaves the high tip open. That's Matt Duchene. A nice deflection. Duchene just angles it in.
Hey, Duchene's been playing some ball now. I'm going to say this, and I know Hockey Guru 13 on Twitter is going to be mad that I said playing some ball, and I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. You know why I don't care anymore?
Why?
For two reasons. One, nobody ever says, hey, he's playing some puck. Nobody ever says that.
Yeah, he's really pucking out there.
The second reason, Ian, do you know why I have no problem this year saying he's playing some ball?
Who's that?
Floyd used to say that.
Floyd used to say it every now and then.
You told me that he would sometimes call the puck a ball, or like he called it like the
home
line
field
of
ice.
Yeah, home field ice. And I think that's so hilarious and just so endearing that he's such a football guy, but he's trying to talk about hockey.
But here's my thing about hockey, right? Like you can say, like I'm watching. I go to. I don't go to all the games, but I go to a lot of the games, right? And I'll be sitting there at the game, and they'll score back ball game, but it's not a ball game.
It's a puck game.
Puck game.
Puck game.
Puck game. So, anywho, Matt Duchene's been playing some ball. Let's get to your Forsberg text, 615-737-1025. And let's go ahead and give away a pair of tickets. Predators and Canes in the is it the preseason finale Saturday, Ian?
Yep.
Preseason finale Saturday. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will win those tickets to see the Preds and the Canes at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, October 9th. Let's get to your phones. Again, Adam Vingan talking to Philip Forsberg's agent says they have had no talks with the Predators about a contract extension. And from Forsberg's words, I am interpreting, without putting words in his mouth, I am interpreting his words as, hey, if I go to market, I go to market. Fair?
That's fair.
Okay, let's go to your phones. What do we have?
Andrew texts in and says, trade Mr. IR if he won't sign for $6 million per year before the deadline. But what happens to his value if he's on IR at the deadline?
I do wonder this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Predators haven't signed Forsberg and they haven't signed Ekholm, and they're both playing with the team. And what worries me is, like, and when I complained about this a couple of weeks ago, Ryan Porth texted me and said, well, they went into November before they signed Yossi to an extension, and so sometimes that happens. Well, I feel like if you think you're on your way, then that's okay. You know, hey, we think we're on our way. Because if Yossi gets hurt and you think you're on your way, then you just sign him to the extension, and he misses 43 games and he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't started negotiations, how can you not have started negotiations? Like, do you not call and say, hey, we want to sign Phillip to a contract?
Yeah, I don't think I believe that necessarily. Because I'm sure the Predators just want a contract to be done, be signed.
But you think that the agent's lying?
I mean, because what would the conversation be if the agent said, yes, they've had several conversations?
So most people are not like Urban Meyer, where they just blatantly lie to you.
But I have such a hard time believing that they haven't had any talk about his contract. How? Did they just forget that his contract's up at the end of the season?
Let me ask you this.
Did they forget to check their calendar?
How could they protect Tanner Jeannot over Calle Yarncroke?
That's also a very fair question that I just don't have an answer for.
I don't know. I mean, Matthias Ekholm said, and it's in the Vingan article, that he'd have signed a contract yesterday.
That's true.
So
why hasn't he?
I don't know. See, this is where I'm like, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say this is where I miss Floyd, but like, at least he'd have some sort of a reasoning logic.
And he's signed contracts before.
Right. So, you know, he told me when he wants to trade for somebody, he'd call that team and ask for somebody else. And then get like a trade discussion going and then say, well, what about, Johnson? When really he wanted Johnson the whole time.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sure there's some gamesmanship to this. But let's say that they haven't even started negotiation.
Which is crazy, but okay.
Forsberg plays next Thursday against Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Hurt something.
I'm trying to think, like, what's a hockey injury that could miss you the whole year?
Lower body injury?
Sure. Lower body injury. Out for 4 months.
Let's say ACL tear.
Yeah, but I think you play with that in hockey.
Of course they do.
But to your point,
something,
a major injury.
Yes.
Concussion. Well, yeah.
They play with those too.
Well, no, that would ruin his market value for
maybe like
else.
a shoulder thing.
Okay. Now what?
Exactly. Because his value goes significantly down. So either you pay him what he wants and he's hurt again, or you shop around and you're not getting in return what you really should.
See, this all makes me nervous.
It is nerve-wracking because it would be one thing if he wasn't injury prone.
Here's where it really makes me nervous. The Predators probably know what their plan is, but I get anxious because I don't know their plan. Like, competitive rebuild is not a thing.
That's not a plan.
Like, that's all
Adam Vingan called it an oxymoronic statement, and that is such a nice way of saying it doesn't make any sense.
Hey, remember who asked David Poyle that made him say competitive rebuild when I was like, hey, at what point do you say you have to rebuild? Because he started that press conference saying we're not rebuilding. And then I said, hey, at what point do you have to then say, okay, we have to rebuild? And that's when competitive rebuild came up. It's not a thing.
It doesn't make any sense.
But I do wonder, like, what their plan is as far as signing Forsberg. Like, what is, their plan in this? But the closer that we get without, them making a move, like at some point in a game of chess, you have to move the piece.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you may not want to. You may not want to show what's going on, but at some point, you got to make a move.
Mm-hmm.
And so once they do that, that'll give me an idea. But right now, it's like they're kind of holding their ground. But Forsberg has all the leverage. The more you go into this, you could argue that his value would be higher at the trade deadline, but there's no guarantee that he's not hurt. So the only way that you can make sure that he's not hurt is if you trade him before he plays. And you've got 1 week, and they're not going to do that. So this is where we are.
We have another texter that texted in and said, completely agree that Phillip Forsberg is going to have his best season ever if he stays healthy. Right now, there are a lot of people that are hypothesizing about what to do with him based on the presumption of the Predators are going to miss the playoffs. I'm going to swim against the current here, but I think this team is going to surprise some people.
Tell me how good Tomasino is. I'll have an answer for you.
And I think that's really why I can fully agree with this texter is that this team could surprise some people because we haven't seen a lot of the young guys play.
Making the playoffs in the NHL means that you're one of the top half teams in the league. And 16 teams make the playoffs.
I don't think the Predators going to the first round of the playoffs is necessarily going to be surprising people.
I mean, look.
Going deep in the playoffs, yeah, that surprised me, and I think it surprised a lot of people.
Everybody's like, go to the playoffs, go to the playoffs. Like, okay, fine, we'll go to the playoffs. I mean, going to the playoffs is not a monumental achievement in the NHL.
And Seth says Forsberg is essentially Tarasenko for the Blues, but
dude,
Forsberg doesn't get the same production as Tarasenko.
Tarasenko was a true big boy forward before he got hurt.
I mean, if you want to talk about like the injury and the contract situation, yeah, maybe, but Tarasenko is on a different level than Philip Forsberg.
Yeah, and Forsberg doesn't have injury problems like Tarasenko.
Yeah.
And, I mean, yes. No, Tarasenko's a better player.
Yeah.
Coming up next, TD is in the house for the TD Power Hour. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans so far this season. TD will join us. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans this week after their loss to the Jets. And what do we make of all the injuries as the injury report is out? So we'll get to all that coming up next. Let me tell you about my friends at Edmunds. Buying a car can be overwhelming, especially now that the demand is back and in full swing. Lucky for you, Edmunds has been taking the stress out of car shopping for over 50 years. Edmunds editors often drive over 500,000 miles a year, testing thousands of hours on hundreds of new vehicles. They review almost every car in the market and rank the best ones in each category so you can narrow your search and compare options side by side to find the best vehicle for you. When you're ready, Edmunds makes it easy to find the options in your area with accurate price estimates. They have the top-rated awards, which are selected by Edmunds editors based on extensive testing and ranking processes, which considers performance, comfort, technology, fuel economy, and value. Edmunds is here to help guide you to your perfect vehicle. Visit Edmunds.com to see their best car rankings and search for vehicles near you. That's EDMUNDS.com. For cars, there's Edmunds. Titans delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025. The game. The Titans get set to take on the Jacksonville Jags, who have had, well, quite the week. It's time now for the TD Power Hour. Teron Davenport with us, presented by FreedomTireGuys.com and Craneworks and RentalWorks. FreedomTireGuys.com, Nashville's premier mobile tire company, online at FreedomTireGuys.com. Craneworks and RentalWorks, your source for crane and equipment rental. Visit Craneworks.com. TD, wild week as far as both the Titans and the Jags are concerned. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm awesome, man. You know, this change of weather kind of been beating me up the last couple of weeks, but today is the day where I feel like I'm recovered. I could talk regular and not have to worry about coughing. Hot dog.
So if you had to put yourself on the injury report, you would put yourself as full participant.
Oh, yeah, full participant, no longer limited. My status is full go.
Okay, so I'm going to try to get through this injury report for the Titans and not run out of air and die. But if I do, someone's going to have to come pick me up off the floor. Caroline, that's probably you.
I'll try my best.
So, Aaron Brewer did not practice with a knee. Jayon Brown did not practice with a knee. Tommy Hudson did not practice with an ankle. Julio Jones did not practice with a hamstring. Brett Kern did not practice with a groin. Taylor Lewan did not practice with a toe. Racy McMath did not practice with a quad. Nick Westbrook-Akina limited with a hamstring. Danico Autry did not practice with a hip. Kari Blasingame, A.J. Brown full, which is good for A.J. Bud Dupree full. Rashawn Evans full. Sharif Finch full. Chris Jackson full. Ben Jones limited. Jeremy McNichols full. Roger Saffold full. Jeffrey Simmons full. Caleb Farley full. Tier Tart full. Derrick Henry rested today. And Ty Sambrilo, a limited participant. So, TD, we saw the Titans with their injuries against the Jets. They simply aren't as good of a team. But how much do you read into this as being a major concern, and how much of this is just right now what's going on in the NFL and what will continue to happen in the NFL?
Hey, one thing that Mike Vrabel says is this sport is a 100% injury sport, and you're seeing it. But I will say this. I don't know that I've ever seen an injury report this lengthy. A lot of it is a result of that game against the Jets. I mean, those guys were dropping like flies last Sunday, and it just sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. But I don't think it's anything to be overly concerned about. Actually, I would be more optimistic about it than anything else, because you got A.J. Brown, full participant, back-to-back days. And my goodness, we saw when you don't have the Yak Monster out there on the field, things could get a little sketchy. And I give Ty Downing credit, though, for some of the play design, you know, as far as bunch formation and the things like that. I actually took one of the plays that he did and put it for Whiteboard Wednesday that they should use this week against the Jaguars. But, you know, if they could get A.J. Brown back, that puts so much less stress on the play calling itself, and it just makes everything better.
When you look at the first 4 games of the season, because, you know, now we're not in the beginning of the season anymore.
Right.
And the inconsistent play, you know, I think it has transcended all 4 games. Fitz brought up yesterday, you know, take out your best game, take out your worst game. And if you do that, you probably take out the Jets game and you take out the Seahawks game, and you're left with the Colts and the Cardinals game. And, you know, there's a lot of, you know, sloppy play at times and lack of execution and things from guys that we kind of expect execution from.
Right.
When you watch this, what do you kind of put your finger on? Is it the injuries in training camp that led to lack of practice? Is it, you know, the injuries they're facing now? Is it guys regressing? Is it what do you make of it right now?
Yeah, I think it breaks down into 3 things for me, and 2 of them are just directly tied, and that's slow starts. And that's something that, you know, they've had pretty much every week. And last week, the slow start correlated right with something that has been a problem throughout the year, and that's the red zone offense. You make 3 trips inside of the red zone, and you come away with 9 points against a team that was facing a 46-3 deficit in the first half coming into that game. You give them life, and you saw that, right? The first catch that Corey Davis made, and then the second one, it was just like, oh, wait a minute. It's not 14-0. It's not 17-0. It's 9-0. We could drive and even this thing, get this thing closer than we've normally been, and I think that's what happened there. So I say all that to say, slow starts, red zone struggles. I mean, this team, I don't know if you're aware of this number, but Obviously, over the last 2 years, they've been at 75% red zone scoring percentage, right? 2019, that was number 1, 75.5%. Last year, they were number 2 to the Packers, who had, Green Bay was at 80%. So still being second to that is pretty good, 75.0%. They're at 50% right now. That's an issue. So when you're not scoring or taking advantage of scoring opportunities, right, you can't afford to start slow. See, in the past, it was that they get inside the 20, okay, they're almost guaranteed to score. That's not the case anymore. And the last thing that I put my finger on is the chunk plays. The Kansas City Chiefs and Tennessee Titans each have given up 5 passing plays of 40 yards or more. That's tied for worst in the league. And it's a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's communication, right? Seattle was communication. This past week, it wasn't communication. It was a lack of playing top down and allowing guys to get behind them and not plastering. And whenever you're going against a quarterback that likes to scramble and extend the play, you got to plaster.
I look, too, you brought up the red zone stat, which I find to be really fascinating. And I thought about this yesterday a little bit, and that is Jonnu Smith had 8 touchdowns
Bingo.
last year.
Bingo.
And I watched Jonnu with the Patriots, and I'm like, they don't and look, Belichick and McDaniels aren't dummies, but they don't even know how to use Jonnu right.
Which
or maybe
is
they're
ridiculous.
not. They may not be good enough to use Jonnu right. But I'm watching Jonnu Smith play for the Patriots, and he looks like a ghost out there. And I watch the Titans offense get into the red zone, to your point, TD. And, it feels to me like Tannehill, with AJ's injury and without Jonnu, Tannehill has yet to find the guy he loves in the red zone. I think he likes Chester Rogers, but I don't think he's found the guy. And I think that Jonnu Smith and Arthur Smith are kind of the 2 reasons right now why the red zone has maybe taken a step back.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, yet to find that guy that he loves, because one of the first guys, his first love with the Titans was Anthony Ferkser, right? And, they've connected. Entering this past game, 79% of the time Tannehill went to Ferkser, it was a completion. But what happened on that last drive? And they weren't in the red zone, but still, that's a tight window throw that you make to a guy that you trust and you believe and you're fully confident he's going to come down with it. He catches that, it's a whole different ball game. He didn't. 27-24, they took the L, right? So those are some of the things that definitely, not even in the red zone, but as you get close in scoring area, those are some of the things that have to happen. And I love how you mentioned Jonnu Smith, because his 8 touchdowns all came in the red zone last year, and he had a bunch in the red zone in 2019 as well. So taking him out of the picture, they need to find other ways to, get guys the football. I like what Todd Downing did on that touchdown to Cam Batson, where it's a little creative, right? You went empty, you had Derrick Henry line up as number 1 on the right, and then Cam Batson went in motion across the formation and just leaked out to that flat. Easy touchdown. Those are the type of things you have to do more of. But then in addition to that, you can't have the mistakes that happen in the red zone, right? They gave up on those 3 of those red zone visits. 2 of them were stopped by a sack. The other one was stopped by a muffed snap. Those are things that can't happen in the red zone. You have to be extra precise in the red zone, and you can't afford those.
Defensively, I think the Titans are leaps and bounds better than they were a year ago.
Third downs especially.
I just feel like right now the big play is biting them in the butt, to your point about the stat. You know what this reminds me of? You remember Vrabel's first year when Malcolm Butler was getting burned for touchdowns, and you're sitting, and the fans were just going nuts about all the money that they spent on Malcolm Butler, and Malcolm Butler was getting torched, and then they went to London, and Logan Ryan, gets beat with his eyes in the backfield, and
the
Phillip
Mike Williams
Rivers
touchdown
throws a lollipop. I mean, and yet they figured it out. That's how I feel about this defense. What do you think right now with the guys in and out? The fans are mad at Jackrabbit. What do you make kind of the defense?
Yeah, it's going to come with time. And the fans, they should be mad at some of these guys. And we got to talk to Jackrabbit today, and one of the things that he said, because you had that 3rd and 2 where Keelan Cole ran that corner route, and he caught it, beautiful toe drag swag, and that set them up for the field goal. But that play happened because Jackrabbit wasn't on the correct side. He was. I don't know. He didn't say that if there was a problem with the play being relayed, but for some reason he got caught on the right side, and he was running over to the left to get in position. And Zach Wilson, to his credit, saw it, hiked it, and went there. And you had that play. So some of the stuff is just really easily fixed, right? That's something that you could fix easily right there. Other stuff, like you look at Corey Davis's touchdown, I mean, everybody says that Borders and Jackrabbit got cooked. I mean, I think really Borders was in position to make the play, but it was just a superbly thrown football and a wonderful concentration catch by Corey Davis, and that happened. So some of this stuff is fluke stuff. Other stuff is just it can be corrected. You look at the Christian Fulton, the touchdown that Lockett had where Fulton and Chris Jackson had the miscommunication. That could be fixed. You watch that together. Hey, when this route does this and you have this over top of it, we have to do this. And those are things that could be fixed. That's the good thing about it. But you can't allow it to continue happening. Now, something like failing to plaster to a receiver, that can be fixed, but that's something you have to create that habit, right? Of wherever he goes, I'm going. And it's going to be that way all the way through the whistle. That's a habit you have to create.
And it's funny to your point because I thought they struggled with that with Kyler in week 1.
Yes.
I thought they were great with Russell in week 2. Now, they got a lot of pressure on Russell, but I thought they were great with it on Russell in week 2. I will say this about the Jets, and Caroline and I talked about this a little bit. I just pray that the Jets don't ruin Zach Wilson because he's got some talent now.
He's fun to watch. He's fun to watch. Now, I admittedly, I'm not high on him, but he is fun to watch, and he will give you those throws where it's just like, whoa. That was a ridiculous throw. Like the one where he connected to Keelan Cole on the right side. I mean, he attacked the line of scrimmage and just unleashed a beautiful that's what you love in a quarterback.
I mean, I could totally see him failing for a bunch of reasons, one of which being the Jets ruining him, which, I mean, But, and I will also say this. As a rookie, Gardner Minshew had a night like that on the Titans a couple years ago. He made every freaking throw, just beautifully against the Titans. And so, I'm with you. I'm not sure Wilson's going to make it, but he's got some talent now that we at least saw last week. Coming up next, how long until we feel like we will see the real Titans? We'll get into that with TD because week 5 starts now. So we'll get with TD on that coming up next. The TD Power Hour presented by FreedomTireGuys.com and CraneWorks and RentalWorks. But first, Caroline wants to tell you about BetUS.
I want to tell you about my official sportsbook, that is BetUS. We've got a Thursday night football game today, so if you want to put some money on it, get on the action with BetUS. They've been America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years, and that is exactly why I endorse them. They have integrity. They have longevity. They've been around for 25 years, so you know that you are going to get paid when you win with BetUS. Plus, they have live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, all kinds of crazy bets. They have everything that you could want to put money on. So call them today, and they will walk you through setting up an account. 1-800-79-BET-US. That is 1-800-79-BET-US. It's super easy. I've set up an account. You can too. Plus, nobody in the industry gives bigger bonuses than BetUS. So if you join now, mention GAME, you can get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Nobody beats that. I bet at BetUS. So should you. So go now to BetUS.com. Join today. Put in promo code GAME for a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. That is BetUS.com.
The TD Power Hour is presented by FreedomTireGuys.com and Craneworks and RentalWorks. TD is with us. Support Stars on Saturday, October 16th by running, walking, or boogieing the Nashville Striders' 21st annual Shelby Bottoms Boogie. 15K and 5K run/walk at Shelby Bottoms Park. This event is perfect for the avid runner as well as the casual jogger, or show your support and participate virtually. For more information, visit starsnashville.org. So TD, here we are 5 weeks now into the NFL season. Week 5 starts tonight with a great Thursday night football game. But the Titans, the team that a lot of us thought could compete at the top of the AFC, have not really shown us who they are. You know, we've seen in certain games offensive line issues, and we've seen them run for 200 yards in other games. We've seen them turn the football over once in the Arizona game. We watched them lock down Russell Wilson in the Seattle game, and then we watched Corey Davis go ham in the Jets game. It's hard to put my finger on who these Titans are. When do you think we'll be able to get a fair estimate of what we're looking at from this team?
You know, I think that's going to be when we get to see Julio Jones and A.J. Brown fully healthy and fully involved in the offense. And then you still have the next maybe week or two that's going to take to get Bud Dupree back. I don't know if you heard some of the comments that he made today, but, man, much respect to Bud Dupree. Like, he spoke very candidly about it. You know, he said that he kind of pushed it too hard initially, and he said there was times where he felt pain and he didn't take himself out. And he said, honestly, he's not ready to go. You know, so I think you need to get him. I mean, we're talking about a huge investment, and we're talking about one of the most disruptive outside linebackers in the game. So you don't have him right now. You don't have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones fully in the mix right now. There's still filling out process for the defense. There's a lot. So I would say probably week 6. You know, after this Bills game, I think that's really where we'll see just what this team is.
I do wonder, too, you brought up the whole thing about A.J. and Julio and their health and Bud Dupree and his health. And I think what bothers me is a lot of people talking about the Titans' health. And I'm not saying you're doing this, but talking about the Titans' health and knowing that, look, this is the NFL, man. People are going to get hurt. And if you make a run to the Super Bowl, you're going to do it with some hurt guys. And I do wonder if the Titans roster, especially because of some of the misgivings they've had in the draft the last couple of years, if it's a little too top-heavy. And that scares me that, as we saw last week, 1 or 2 critical injuries can absolutely sink your ship.
It's a bit top-heavy, but, you know, when I was mentioning A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, I was talking about them fully involved in the mix, right?
Yep.
Injuries have kept them from being able to, because we haven't seen this offense, like, actually click. And to where, okay, first down, fade to A.J. Brown. Second down, Julio Jones, a slant. Then you mix it up, A.J. Brown in a slot, you know, and you do whatever. Like that type of rhythm where it's back and forth, and you mix Henry into it, we haven't gotten to see that yet. And I think that is something that was just going to come with time, but the process has been slowed down because of these guys and their hamstrings.
Do you think Todd Downing is doing a good job?
I mean, that's a tough call. I think he's doing an okay job. The reason why I lean more towards okay and not bad is what he did last week. Bunch formation, 0 splits, third down, Josh Reynolds getting the first down, the play design with Cam Batson. He's done better there. So I think that's progress. I still would like to see him run a bit less on first down. He's getting away from it sometimes, but not enough. And so that's where my gripe kind of is with him.
So it's funny you say that because I think you and I are kind of in the same spot where we kicked it around the room yesterday on the show. Caroline and Ian are leaning against on Todd Downing. I said I'm neutral right now on Downing. I think there are some plays that are drawn up. I thought the Cam Batson touchdown was a great play. I thought that was a great play on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, they draw up the bomb to Josh Reynolds. Tannehill puts it right in his hands.
It was right
Guys got to catch football. Ferkser's got to catch football. And I'm not saying that, look, it's the coach's job. 7 sacks is never acceptable.
Right.
And some of that has to fall on the coordinator's shoulders. But I think I think Downing has been a very easy target. And then Jason Fitz came on yesterday, and, Fitz, diehard Raider fan, and he's ready to shoot Todd Downing off to the moon. So I guess my point is I'm very neutral on Downing, and I think that it's really hard to judge an offensive coordinator through 4 games.
Yeah, through 4 games, and 1.5 of those games, your best player is out. Derrick Henry's the best. I don't even put Derrick Henry in the mix just as far as because he's like in a category of his own. But I think, outside of Henry, A.J. Brown is one of their best offensive weapons. So he hasn't been there, right? And you're still – I don't care what anybody says. There's still a filling out process and getting on the same page with Julio Jones and Tannehill. And that's something that they're working on. So I get it. There's a lot to be frustrated about, a lot to be disappointed about. But I think there still has to be time for all that to come around. One thing I would like to see him do more is layering plays, right? Like I would like to see him feed Derrick Henry stretch play a couple times, right? And then when you see all of the opponent's defenders shading towards that side, right, going to that side, play action and boot Ryan Tannehill. Do it on 3rd down. Do it on 3rd and short, right? And then also play action, boot Tannehill and, have that right to left, right, with Tannehill booting to his left, have the receiver on the right, that deep over, like the cross-country dagger route that they call it. Go to that. Like, do some of those things. Layer plays a little bit more, right? Screen a couple times to McNichols. That's working tremendously. So, okay, fake it. And they actually did that. I come to think of it. They did it, but it wasn't executed. But, fake that screen and then have a backside screen to the tight end. Those are the things that I would like to see him do a little bit more, just kind of like get in his groove. And you saw that with Arthur Smith where he was in his bag. You would see him like, okay, I'm going to show you this, I'm going to show you this, show you this. Now, when you start looking for this, I'm going to kill you with that. And that's what I want to see Todd Downing do a little bit more of.
Where do you place the blame for 7 sacks on Sunday?
Everybody. Tannehill held on to the ball. There was a time, and he admitted it, there was a time he had Derrick Henry on a swing route to his left. He held on to the ball and ate the sack. But then there were other times, Quesenberry was having a lot of trouble with 91, and that's something that you got to start Chip, like give him some help. You're going to have to give him some help there because sometimes you just have a guy like he may not be, Bruce Smith, but he just matches up well against you and sure. There it is, right? The game is about matchups, and that's one that they won consistently. Other times, there were issues as far as picking up stunts, right? You had the delayed blitz also with C.J. Mosley, where he would check, the back didn't come out in a pass route, so he blitzed that interior gap, and that was left open. And then there were other times where, you got to get open, right? Get the magnet out your chest. That's what my receiver coach used to say to us if we couldn't. He said, son, get the magnet out your chest. You know what I mean? Because you got to get open. You got to give your quarterback a chance. You got to give him some separation, show him some separation so he can get you the football. So it's on all of that. It's on Todd Downing too, right? Because, hey, you did go to bunch at times, but what else can you do to try to create separation for these guys? How can you work? Can you send them in motion, right? Because, a guy goes in motion, it's a lot harder to jam a receiver off the line when he's in motion. Why not send guys in motion? Like, there's things that you could do. I'm no OC, right? It's easy for me to sit here in this chair and tell Todd Downing what he should be doing. And I'm not trying to tell him what he should be doing. I'm just trying to present other things that could possibly help out. You asked me where the blame should go. So that's why I'm getting into it. I don't want someone to think like, I'm an armchair OC, because that's not what I'm trying to be. It's just the blame just goes all over the place. That's really the bottom line.
So I told the story on the show a couple days ago. I called I called 2 former offensive coordinators, one of whom was also a head coach. Mm-hmm. And I said, what do you make of these 7 sacks and the protection? And the coordinator said essentially, one of them said essentially the same thing you said. And the other thing he said was, you're never going to know. Because the only people that do know whose fault it is are Tannehill, Vrabel, and Downing, and they're not going to tell you.
Exactly.
So if there's one play where, okay, this guy got beat right here, Brable's not getting up to the press conference and saying, well, Quessenberry has to be able to keep his man in for 1 second, and he's got to kick him out to the outside on this one, so that's his fault. And then the receivers didn't get open on that one, so that's Nick Westbrook's fault, and that's his fault and his fault. And then Tannehill's, this is his fault, and because this is the NFL, you don't do that. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And like one of them, Derrick Henry and Quessenberry missed their assignments.
Right. It
I
happened.
mean, Tannehill is not going to be able to throw the football in that case. So I certainly think that while it's not the sexy answer or the spiteful answer or the angry answer, I think
the
it is
real
probably
answer.
the most accurate answer
Exactly.
for what we saw. And I remember when the Ravens got the 9 sacks on Mariota, and Floyd said, as a defensive coach, once you start getting 3-4, blood's in the water. And you brought up 91 against Quessenberry, and I think after a couple of rushes, he said, okay, blood's in the water.
Yeah.
And they knew they were coming.
And not only that, right? It goes back to what we said about not having Brown and Jones. When you have this group of receivers, I mean, they're solid. There isn't anybody that you're gonna be like, you know what? If I go 1-on-1, I'm gonna mess around and get cooked. They don't have any of those guys. So when you're able to go man on the outside, man, you could blitz, and they were blitzing the heck out of Ryan Tannehill on Sunday, and that helped too as far as the pressure is concerned.
And you know how you get rid of the blitz? Josh Reynolds catches the football on the deep bomb, and all of a sudden they're not going to blitz as much anymore.
Yeah, that was softening it up. And then even just, what happened to going hot? Like, guys have to go hot a little bit more often, replace where the blitz left, and that's a quick catch and throw. But, again, like I don't know if they had the call on to do that and didn't execute or what happened. But that's just, my perspective.
Did you read the Rich Cimini article where basically C.J. Mosley said, yeah, we're not allowed to audible, but I saw Tannehill audible, so I audibled, and that caught Tannehill off guard?
Yeah, that's really interesting, the back and forth, the chess game that goes on. And I remember watching C.J. Mosley, in Baltimore, even when he came in as a rookie. I was covering the Ravens, and he always was a very cerebral guy. So I respect the fact that Robert Saleh allowed him, and Jeff Ulbrich, who played linebacker, by the way, in the league. I respect the fact that they allowed him to do that, and it wasn't an issue.
TD's with us for the TD Power Hour, presented by Freedom Tire Guys and Crane Works and Rental Works. Coming up next, what does TD make of Ryan Tannehill so far this season? Good, bad, indifferent, different from last year? We'll get that thought coming up next. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. NFL Week 5 starts tonight, and the FanDuel Sportsbook app wants you to get the most out of every play. That's why they're giving everyone a $10 risk-free bet every week. Tonight, Thursday Night Football, is a great opportunity to give it a try. All you got to do is bet a same-game parlay with 3 legs or more, and if your bet doesn't win, FanDuel will pay you back up to $10. Tonight, Rams and Seahawks. Gotta love the Rams. I love the Rams on the money line here. Plus, I love a big, high-scoring game. So overs and passing yard overs, you name it. I love the FanDuel Sportsbook. They have easy, fast payouts, easy to use, and it's America's #1 sportsbook app. There is no feeling like nailing a same-game parlay bet, so lock it in today. If you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, sign up with the promo code JGM to also receive a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code JGM so they know that I sent you. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same game parlay available for multiple sports in all states on mobile and web. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789. Stillman & Company, the TD Power Hour, presented by Freedom Tire Guys and Craneworks and Rental Works. And get your questions in for TD at 615-737-1025, because as always, we'll take your questions for TD at the end of the hour. TD, Ryan Tannehill. I am looking at a quarterback who for the last 2 years maybe wasn't the best quarterback in the game, but was arguably a top 6, top 8 quarterback in the NFL from the day he took over the job from Mariota until the loss last year against the Ravens. So far this season, Tannehill has played well at times. I thought the comeback against Seattle was excellent. At other times, he's been on his back, Arizona and the Jets. And against the Colts, maybe played sloppier than I'm used to seeing Tannehill play. But you brought up the stats in the red zone, and we've taken a look, maybe I have, at the turnovers. The 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and the 2 fumbles. And that just doesn't feel to me like the efficient Ryan Tannehill that we're used to. And I talked to a former NFL head coach who told me that, and he meant this in no disrespect to Tannehill, but that Arthur Smith took everything that Tannehill did. If there was a pros and a cons list with Tannehill, Arthur maximized the pros and minimized the cons. And ever since I heard that, I'm starting to worry that maybe Tannehill is taking a little bit of a step back. What do you make of Tannehill so far this season?
I mean, isn't that what a coach is supposed to do? Maximize the pros and minimize the cons. So,
sure.
I think the turnovers, you got to take a closer look at them, right? Mm-hmm. 2 of the interceptions, one bounced off of a receiver's shoulder. The other one, you had 2 guys in the same area, and one kind of settled instead of working through the zone, or vice versa. He worked through the zone instead of settling. A couple of the fumbles, I mean – I don't know who would have held on to that football in the Chandler Jones situation, right? I mean, that was he turned upfield and boom, you got a guy that is one of the best edge rushers right there in your face and made you fumble. So I'm not going to ding him as much for the turnovers. I think really what he can do a little bit better is use his legs a bit more. There are times where he's able to run, and he could have ran a couple times against the Jets. Mm-hmm. He didn't do it. I want to see him do that because, that's kind of what elevates his game. That's what makes it harder to defend against him. And it makes teams less likely to go man defense because they don't want their backs to him because he could break a long run.
I would agree with you on some of that. I thought, what's crazy is in the Chandler Jones one, I think he turned around, saw Chandler, and, I think you could see on the replay, his eyes get real big, uh-oh. And most people, when they turn around and see Chandler Jones coming to kill them, would have that reaction. And he tried to probably get the ball out, and I thought he should have eaten it in the Indianapolis game on the one over the middle, because you could tell when he dropped back and saw the 2 guys in the same spot, he was like, wait a minute, you guys aren't supposed to be there. And so I'm sitting there saying, hey, you got to eat those balls and take those sacks and understand it. Then the next week he takes 7 sacks. And I'm like, why'd you take 7 sacks?
But you go back and look at that one. Now, if Tommy Hudson settles instead of working through, that's a completion. So, that's a not being on the same page with each other. Mm-hmm. There are certain times, like zone especially, sometimes you got to settle in the window. That's what they teach you as a pass catcher. Settle in that window. And your quarterback is expecting you to do that. You don't do it, and you work through the zone. The interception is thrown, and to some who may not really realize that whole concept or have an understanding of that, it's a bad play. No, that wasn't a bad play on Tannehill's part.
I thought Tannehill on that one, though, was so scared when he saw those 2 guys in the same spot. I think that was one where
scared or not, he stood there and he delivered the ball. You know what I mean? He put the ball where it was supposed to be. That one, in my opinion, strongly in my opinion, isn't on Tannehill.
You brought up the not running against the Jets, which I think is interesting. He kind of looked a little shell-shocked. Look, I get it. You get sacked that many times, you get hit. I don't care how tough you are. You're not going to want to get hit again. But Ian brought up a great point Monday, which was, there was a little Marcus Happy Feet, I thought, from Tannehill in the second half of the Jets game. Now, he stood in there in overtime, which I'm going to give him credit for, and in that final drive. But I guess I was a little surprised, from a 10-year veteran who's been through everything Tannehill's been through, to see him affected by the rush. And I, to your point, TD, I think he didn't want to take off because he had been hit so many times.
Yeah, I think, there were times where I don't know why he didn't take off. I don't know, but the other thing is, you talk about the happy feet. Sometimes you got to create there has to be a space for you to move within the pocket. And there were times where he just didn't have space to move within the pocket.
Oh, yeah, Vrabel said that on Monday.
Oh, he did say that. Okay, yeah, and you could tell, right? Like there was times where like he wanted to slide, but you couldn't. Now I'm not saying like literally slide like baseball. I'm talking about slide like move to your left, move to your right, and he just couldn't. And then there were other times where he felt the pressure coming from like behind him, and he tried to step up, and he couldn't because Quentin Williams was collapsing the pocket. So that Jets game is just one where everything just broke down, in my opinion.
I felt like the Jets game, the Titans have been playing sloppy the whole season. Even the Seattle and Colts games, you just wish they'd sharpen it up a little bit. And I think the Jet game with the injuries and everything else that kind of all piled on, as far as they were concerned. And I said this, with everything going on in Jacksonville this week, I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans have their best week of practice and go in there and beat them by 35 points.
They need to. This is as much of a GPS game as, a game like next week against the Bills is. Because this one right here, because now you have a team, okay, you lost to an 0-3 team. It was an embarrassing loss, a frustrating loss, right? I get it. All teams in the league are good, et cetera, but that was an embarrassing loss. So how do you, as a team that aspires to be one of the best in the conference, how do you bounce back from that? You know what I mean? Yep. You go on the road and you whoop that team's tail, and that's what they have to do. And that, to me, is why this is a GPS game. It's going to let you see where they're at and see, how they're able to, move on from. That loss, I'm not going to say devastating, but, that loss, that's a real, that's a tough body blow. This team, the Jets, they didn't have a single lead throughout the year before that game.
Average 6 points a game.
They scored more points in that game than they did in the first three. That's embarrassing. So now here we are Thursday. They have that push that, it's pushed behind them. But I think I just want to see how they respond Sunday when they go out there. Because what do you always want to see, like from a team when it's a mismatch like this? What did the Bills do to the Texans, right? You whoop their butt and you show, okay, this is what we're supposed to do to a team that's not on the same level as us. That's the approach. That's the mindset.
TD's with us for the TD Power Hour. Get your questions in for TD now. Calls and texts. We'll go to the calls first. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Tune into the game of the week. This week on 1025 The Game, brought to you by Red Spirits and Wine in Bellevue. The game of the week is the Cleveland Browns and the Los Angeles Chargers kickoff at 3:05. Stillman and Companies, delivered by TriStar Movies, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, let's get right to the questions for TD. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And our questions for TD and the TD Power Hour is presented by FreedomTireGuys.com and Craneworks and RentalWorks. Adam is going to kick us off here on the program. Thank you for calling. Adam, you're on with TD.
Hey, Teron. So, all right, Jared, he and I, we've got a history, man. Like, sometimes I have months sometimes where I think he knows what he's talking about, and I have other months where I'm like, this guy doesn't know anything. So he keeps saying something to the effect of, this is the same offensive line that went to the AFC Championship game minus Jack Conklin. That's so stupid to hear. Like, that's such a big – he's such a big deal. And I'm thinking of, like, Jonnu on the end as well, and what a big deal he is not being there. And I just kind of want you to extrapolate on that a little bit. Like, Jonnu, I feel like he's the problem because our tight ends are so weak. I hear that they're supposed to be really good blockers, but they're not blocking. And I want to see what we can do to improve tight end. If there's anything that could be done right now to improve tight end.
No, that's a good point. You know, Jonnu Smith, you didn't see him getting blown up by defensive ends or linebackers, but unfortunately for the Titans, especially for Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, that's what you're seeing at times, you know, for Jeff Swaim, unfortunately. And, you know, I wouldn't say this is the same offensive line because you didn't have a Taylor Lewan who is coming off an injury and still trying to find his way. You didn't have a struggling Nate Davis. At that point, Nate Davis was in a groove. Roger Saffold, you didn't have some of the – I mean, every game you got something with Roger Saffold. And that's not, you know, to call him soft because I'm definitely not doing that. I'm just pointing out the fact that there's constant week to week, okay, Roger has to deal with this or he has to deal with that. So it's different. And then, I mean, frankly, the same thing with Ben Jones. So I don't feel these guys are the same as what they were in 2019. So it's not the same offensive line, not whatsoever, in my opinion.
So I think these are two different things to his call. First off, I think not having Jonnu Smith is astronomically a big deal. I think it's a big deal for two reasons. One, Jonnu was perfect for this offense and for what Tannehill wants to do. And two, they don't have a starting tight end. Like, I understand, you know, they were going to try to get by with Swaim and Ferkser got hurt, and they brought back Pruitt. But, like, Swaim could not make the Jaguars last year. And I'm not here to knock on them, but there's a like, I think they thought they were going to get a tight end, and then the opportunity for Julio Jones came open, so they put their chips in the middle on Julio, and I get it. But they do not have a starting tight end. Right?
Not to get too far off subject, because what the caller was talking about specifically with Jonnu Smith was a blocking perspective. And him not being there, that is definitely hurting this team's pass protection.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
You know, I just want to keep it skinny on that one.
The line, the 2019 line, like, and I go back to this, it wasn't a great pass blocking line. Now, at the beginning of the year, it was a mess because of the injuries and the suspension and everything else. But, like, Caroline and I were listening to an old Jared and the GM podcast, and Floyd was talking about how he didn't think the offensive line could pass protect for Tannehill. And you go back to the New Orleans Saint game when Derrick Henry was out, and David Onyemata and DeMario Davis and those guys were just eating Lewan and Conklin alive in passing situations. Yeah. This, I think, is a great run-blocking offensive line because those guys like Saffold and Davis, when he's right, can just maul you. But I'm not sure they've ever been – when defenses know it's a pass down, I'm not sure they've ever been a great pass-blocking defensive line or offensive line.
No, and on that note, it's different from the 19. But what else we got here?
One texter texts in and asks, who do you think will be the leading wide receiver in yards this weekend?
I said Josh Reynolds last week, and we were good to go there. But, wow, I mean – I think A.J. Brown is going to play, so if that's the case, but you know, that's a tough question in that slot position. So I'll go Rodgers.
I'm gonna throw a wild card out there, Batson. Yeah, they've always loved him. I don't know why they've loved him as much, but I think Batson has earned a little bit more playing time.
Mark from Clarksville texts in and says, if the Titans do lose, what changes are made for the Titans due to these 2 losses to bad teams?
Oh,
new
my
play
goodness.
caller, new coaches.
I could see a new play. It depends. Like, what's the score? You know what I mean? If it's 24 to 6, hey, you know what? you may have some changes there offensively. You know what I mean? If it's 45 to 38, you may have a change defensively. But I don't think Mike Vrabel would have a knee-jerk reaction like that to fire a coach right now at this point, and I don't think he should. I think it really will come down to some changes along the starting lineup, whether it's have this guy start instead of that guy. It's just so hard to say just hypothetically, like not knowing, okay, what's the situation? Were they struggling offensively? Why were they struggling offensively? What's the situation? Were they struggling defensively? Why were they? So it's tough. I doubt if they lose this game. I doubt there's any firings in the coaching staff.
I think TD's right about how you lose it. I mean, if you had told me in 2019 when they went to the Denver game, if you lose this game, Marcus is done, I maybe wouldn't have felt that way. Then we watched how Marcus played for a half, and it was like, okay, we love you, Marcus, but it's time for you to take a seat down. I will say this about changes if they lose on Sunday. TD, you might need to be prepared to do 4 hours of radio on Monday because I may have a heart attack on Sunday before Monday. Just even thinking about hosting the 4 hours if they lose to the Jets.
We're going to have the medics on standby.
On standby if they lose this week. That one is. And TD said, Mike Vrabel, he doesn't expect to have a knee-jerk reaction. I can say this. Jared Stillman will have a knee-jerk reaction on Monday at 2 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
If they lose this
game. That's like saying that the
knee-jerk.
sun's going to rise tomorrow. Like, we know it's going to rise.
They might win, and I might have some knee-jerk reactions.
Basically.
Robert in Nashville is up next. Robert, good to talk to you. You go ahead.
Good to talk to you. Always. Okay, enjoy your show. I would just like to ask this question here. What would be the game plan on playing, the Jaguars if the Jaguars get up on the Titans, because they have been doing really well as far as getting a lead up on teams but not being able to keep it. So with the injuries that the Titans have, I'm just curious what you guys think. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Hey, that's a tough one. I mean, if they get up on it, I mean, it's going to be Derrick Henry left, Derrick Henry right, Derrick Henry center, Derrick Henry screen. I think they're going to rely heavily on Henry if they get up early. My opinion, I think they should mix it all up. It goes back to what I was saying about layering plays and those type of things. You want to show them and then play off of that. And I think that's really the game plan that they should come out with.
Any concern on the carry total for Derrick Henry right now?
It's about that number is going to be astronomical at the end of the year. But I mean, they're managing it right. He didn't practice yesterday. He didn't practice today, and he seems to have no issue with it. I actually asked him about the whole recovery process, and he has an extensive list of things that he's doing. He's talked to some guys from the past, and has gotten advice, and he's just continuing to work through it. So me personally, if he says that he can handle it, I wouldn't have an issue.
Do you think Jeremy McNichols, 1 carry for 11, do you think he should get more carries? Because I think McNichols has proven himself that he can. I think McNichols maybe deserves a couple more carries just to ease the load a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you could utilize him, and if it's not carries, it's touches, screens, angle routes, and those type of things out of the backfield.
The Canadian Titan texts in and says Harold Landry has been an absolute animal this season, showing up all over the field, leading the entire league in quarterback pressures. But one area he lacks, however, is the sack department. Why do you think that is, and do you think he has done enough to warrant a second contract?
I think he's done enough to warrant a second contract. Now, is it a monster deal like Bud Dupree's? No. But I think he has done enough. I mean, he's proven that he is – if there's one guy you can rely on, it's him. He's playing 98% of the snaps and not getting injured. And there's so many things that he's being asked to do. Coach Ryan Crow got into that a bit. He talked about how Landry is asked to, be the looper on some of the stunts, how he's coming off the edge, how he's dropping back in coverage, how he's slashing inside and making plays against the run. The kid is literally doing everything. Now, as far as he's doing everything but this, finishing. There have been some times where he could have finished. You saw it against the Jets last week. There were a couple opportunities where he could finish, and he admitted that. So that's why he's not necessarily getting the sacks. It's just like a tick too late to get there, but he's impacting the quarterback, and that's something that is definitely critical as well.
Here's my question for you, though. Where did Ola Adeni go last week?
It was his game plan. They remember they gave Danico Autry a lot of reps at outside backer. And listen, Ola is playing outstanding, but I'm not taking Adeni out or Harold Landry out to play Ola. And I understand what they were doing with Autry as far as like getting a different look coming off the edge. One thing I am surprised about, Kenston, he's on this campaign.
Oh, this anti-Simmons campaign.
Yeah, and I didn't hear from him, and I'm surprised about that. But I will say this about Simmons: it's not always about your own personal impact plays. And this is something that I used to get into with Eagles fans all the time about Fletcher Cox, because when he got that $100 million deal, Eagles fans were going crazy. But if you take him out of that lineup, that defense gets a lot worse. And it's not always, having his name called, right? It's about him going in. And every game he gives you 2 or 3 splash plays, and it's not splash play like where he's personally making the tackle, but you see him blowing something up, and that allows somebody else to come in and make the tackle. I talked to Rashaan Evans about this, and he said that Jeffrey Simmons, his role in that defense is self-sacrificing. And that's what Terrell Williams said, the D-line coach. Simmons said it himself as well. Now, can he make more plays? Definitely. He's capable of making more plays. You do need to see a bit more impact plays, but I would by no means say that he has anything fully, wholeheartedly to do with any type of struggles on defense. If anything, he is helping make other guys better. And that is the true definition of an outstanding player. You make your teammates better.
Floyd told me that at the Patriots, Bill Belichick did not do incentives for sacks or touchdowns or things like that. The only incentives Belichick gives out, team incentives. See? That's it. Because he wants everybody to be willing to not get a sack if it means somebody else gets the sack, but the Patriots win.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a pretty good way to go with it. TD, as always, we appreciate you. The Talking with TD podcast is out. And not only that, more importantly, he'll be on with, not more importantly, but as importantly, he'll be on the pregame show with us on Sunday as well as on Robbie and Rex Road tomorrow. Appreciate you, TD.
For sure. Appreciate you. All right, Caroline. Yep. Peace.
Thanks, TD.
TD, Teron Davenport, the best in the business, joining us as always. So, very measured take from TD on a lot of different things with the Titans. Right now, some things are good, some things are bad. Jason Fitz had a take yesterday that we have got to discuss next. And I'm not going to say it's invalid because I don't want to. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The Game. We are streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. So TD says no, he doesn't think a coach will get fired on Sunday if they lose to Jacksonville, with the caveat of how do they lose, which I think is fair to at least say how they lose is important.
But even still,
it's the Jags.
And a loss to the Jags.
After a loss to the Jets.
Like a gross loss.
Just, oh, goodness. I say this, there will be coaches being fired on this show on Monday if they lose that game. It's not a threat. It's a promise. So we were just talking during the break, and Ian and Caroline yesterday both put their current flag on the Todd Downing meter to leaning against, right?
Yes.
There's 3 levels on each side. There's leaning against, should be fired, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then there's neutral, where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's leaning towards, love them, maybe
give
fire
him a
Vrabel,
promotion.
make him the head coach.
Yes.
There's 3 layers on each side. So I don't really know Todd Downing that well. I expect more out of the offense. I think there's a lot of reasons why you're not getting more out of the offense. I think there's more blame than just the play calls to go around. But Downing has been an easy target for a lot of people. And Jason Fitz, ESPN Radio, was on our show yesterday. We know Fitz, biggest Raider fan in the world.
Yes.
And Fitz was on our show yesterday. And Todd Downing, when Fitz was on the radio here at 102.5, the Raiders had Todd Downing as their offensive coordinator when they were still in Oakland. And it did not go well. One season after Derek Carr being an MVP candidate, Carr broke his leg. The next year, Downing promoted to offensive coordinator. It was a mess. I don't know what went on in Oakland. Downing got fired, went back to the Vikings. Then he came here. Now he's offensive coordinator here. Fitz is not a fan of Todd Downing. Here's what he said yesterday.
Well, I'm going to stay consistent to what I said at the time. And, Todd may be a really great guy, and I hope his family listens to the station. And I wish nothing but the best for individuals. But I've never seen a worse version of Todd Downing or of Derek Carr than I saw with Todd Downing. And, in fact, if I go all the way back to my Raiders fandom, the only offensive coordinator I can remember that was worse than Todd Downing in his year with the Raiders was a guy that was legit running an Airbnb until he got hired off the streets to run Art Shell's office. Like that's how bad the offense was. There was a lack of game plan. There was a lack of continuity. There was a lack of identity. Carr looked lost in that process. Like Downing was a glory child as a QB coach, and that's why they gave him the job for at the time Oakland. And it was the worst you could imagine. I absolutely didn't like the hire to begin with. You know that. I didn't mince words with it. I'm sure he's a great human being, but all I'm watching is another version of the same thing I saw before. Just because he's had time away from that job doesn't mean that he comes back much different. A lot of coaches don't. I think that Todd Downing is a liability to offenses that he coaches.
Okay. Ooh. How much does what Fitz say scare us about Downing?
Well, Fitz has spoken his mind about Todd Downing since the very beginning, whenever the Titans hired Todd Downing. And He said the same thing, but I think I always took it as, okay, I hear you, but it's been a while. And I think that Vrabel would know going from Arthur Smith, he would pick the right guy to fill into this offense, so maybe he could be different. But now I hear Fitz, and I'm like, no, you're right, because we've seen Todd Downing call not spectacular games. I still lean against. I'm not totally against, but I hear what Fitz is saying, and it does scare me.
Ian?
I mean, didn't really know much about Downing here the last couple of years, just as far as being the tight ends coach, and he's been in the room. And I do like that. And I do think the week-to-week game planning is probably something I'm not as worried about, because I think between him and quarterbacks coach Pat O'Hara, there is continuity there, and they know what it is they talk about, some of the key points, some of the key things. I think my biggest concern is, and I guess it's hard to evaluate this kind of thing before you get into that position, but calling plays in the moment, on the fly, in the heat of the battle, that's something that I think is hard to prepare for, and I do wonder how you can improve on that, and how much of that is just an innate feel and if he can get better. And that's kind of where I'm struggling right now, is in the play calling, in the moment, in the week to week, in the game to game, that I worry he might not be able to overcome.
So I hear you guys. I just don't think it's been that bad yet. Like, Fitz to the wall is like, Derek Carr was the worst Derek Carr I have ever seen Derek Carr be, and the offense was as bad as when Art Shell hired the guy running a bed and breakfast, and it is just, and like, I remember when Norm Chow was the offensive coordinator of the Titans. And look, I'm not here to throw a parade for Todd Downing. I've told you all, I am neutral on Todd Downing. And if I get to a point like where I feel like I am with Shane Bowen, that it's time for me to feel differently, I will tell you all that, and I will not mince words. I don't think anyone's afraid of that. I just don't think it's been that bad. Like, has it been not good enough? Yeah, it hasn't been good enough. But they don't have a right tackle, and they don't have a tight end. And how can I judge the offensive coordinator when you don't have a tight end?
Or receivers, really, last week.
Yeah, last week.
You didn't give him a tight end. At least you gave him a receiver to try to, you gave him a couple of receivers. He doesn't have a tight end. I saw Jared Cook catch a touchdown pass Monday, and it took me back to March when I'm like, let's see, Jared Cook could come in here and be a tight end and you wouldn't have to pay a lot of money. Gerald Everett could be a guy you could come in and be a tight end, wouldn't have to be a lot of money. But they just don't have a tight end. And like, that's my hard part of like saying, hey, they're down. TD brought up the stat in the red zone. They were 75% with Arthur Smith. They're 50% in the red zone. That would be very easy to point a finger at the coordinator and say, well, hell, that guy was 75%. You're 50%. You suck. But Jonnu Smith was the number one weapon they had in the red zone. And they didn't just lose Jonnu Smith. They didn't replace him at all. The tight ends on the roster last year were Jonnu Smith, Anthony Ferkser, Michael Pruitt, and Jeff Swaim. The tight ends on the roster right now are Anthony Ferkser, Jeff Swaim, and Michael Pruitt. They didn't even replace Jonnu. Like, it's just gone. And so, this reminds me when Delaney Walker got hurt. And I was sitting there like, well, how are they going to replace the 84 catches Delaney had a year ago? And Floyd was like, well, Davis is going to have to get 10 more, and Jonnu's going to have to get 20 more, and Taywan Taylor's going to have to get more, and Deion Lewis is going to have to get more, and they're going to have to. But, like, they literally did not replace it. And so I can't get on Downing. And Downing might suck. Let me just say that. He might suck. But I cannot get on the man when, other than the 3rd and 4 play call against the Jets when he took Derrick Henry out of the game, I never thought, like, you know what, Downing is screwing the deal up. Like that, and I know, look, coordinator's hard to judge. I stayed neutral with Arthur, and Ian and I were talking about this during the break, which was, this time 2 years ago, we thought Saffold was the worst free agent signing. We thought, kicker was a mess, and people were down on Arthur Smith. And I've told this story many times where I stayed neutral on Arthur. I was out on Terry Robisky after the second game. Second game against the Lions, I was like, this guy sucks. I stayed neutral on Arthur. They played a game against the Panthers in which they got embarrassed in Carolina. And Derrick Henry touched the ball twice in the first half. And the callers, we had a segment where I remember, it might have been 30 minutes, honestly, where I let the callers and Floyd argue with each other, and I stayed out of it. And I said, I'm staying neutral on this because there's so much that goes into offensive coordinator, and I just wasn't ready to throw Arthur under the bus. And the fans were. And Floyd knew Arthur, and I think Floyd and Arthur were kind of tight. So Floyd was, adamantly behind Arthur. I don't know, Downing. I know that the Raider thing was a mess, but they were moving. Carr was hurt. Del Rio was the coach. Like, it was a lot that happened there, and I don't know enough about it, just like I don't know enough about Tannehill in Miami. I'm not ready. It hasn't been that bad. Like, to where Fitz is just screaming and yelling and all kinds of stuff.
But do Fitz's comments not worry you at all?
Oh, my God, of course they worry me.
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting at here is, you're right. It hasn't been that bad, but you said it. Has it been up to par? Has it been exceptional? No. It hasn't. It hasn't been that bad. You're right. And like they're very much so things could change whenever this offense is more healthy. But it scares me.
Are you ready to throw Downing under the bus?
No.
Ian?
No, not yet. He
I gotta say
definitely
this.
got to give some more time.
Yes.
Ian has always been the most mellow of the Jared and the GM / Stillman and Company group, and that includes Floyd, who could be very non-committal on things like this. I think Ian dislikes Downing the most out of the three of us.
I think he might.
I think he really does.
I'm trying to talk myself out of it every week. Like,
but
okay,
then you just
okay.
get pulled right
but
back
then
in.
I just listen to something else, and it just pulls me right back in.
So what pulled you right back in this time?
I don't exactly remember. I just think it was this week with the Jets, with the pass rush, there was just like a couple of things that really kind of stuck out to me as far as lack of adjustments on the fly. No max protect, virtually 0 shots down the field. I mean, just, I don't know, too predictable. And TD brought this up, Teron, on first down, zigging when he should zag and all this kind of stuff. Just not keeping defensive players on their toes, being a little bit too predictable. Just a couple of things sticking out here and there that I try not to get too worked up about.
I think he was starting to get a little worked up there, though. When he was like
He's
listing
working
off the
himself,
things
yeah.
that
I'm
he doesn't
trying
like
to
about
go back
Downing.
Ian
through
was
my
like,
head.
oh, yeah, I forgot that pissed me off so much.
Ian hates Downing. I mean, like, and I this would be one of
I'm
those things.
surprised you don't hate him more.
I don't hate him at all. I'm neutral.
I know, but I'm saying I'm surprised you don't hate him at all.
Because I just don't think it's that bad. I just don't think it's that bad. They scored 30 points in Seattle.
Okay.
Like, they're going to have a 2,000-yard rusher this year.
But I feel like Derrick Henry could do that under any offensive coordinator.
You don't remember Norm Chow.
I don't think that's the magic of Todd Downing working there.
You don't remember Norm Chow.
No, I do not.
Like, that's the thing that, like, there's a baseline.
But, like, that's, like, the worst.
To me, there's a baseline for Titans coordinators. Because I've seen really, really good Arthur Smith and really, really bad Norm Chow.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's everything in between. So there's Norm Chow. Here's the list of Titans offensive coordinators of all time, starting from the bottom. Norm Chow is the worst.
In a league of his own.
Ken Wisenhunt second. Chris Palmer third. No. Dowell Loggins third. Chris Palmer fourth. Mike Heimerdinger fifth. Les Steckel sixth. Arthur Smith seventh. And Matt LaFleur non-applicable because he was here for a year. But he would be down towards the bottom because he stuck Derrick Henry's butt on the bench. And only a moron sticks Derrick Henry's butt on the bench. So put LaFleur after Dowell Loggins. And that's where he goes. And Rubisky's somewhere around there. Like Rubisky, I'm going to say this about Rubisky. Because you all know me, I hated Rubisky.
What about Jason Michael?
It's like he doesn't count because Wisenhunt was the coordinator.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say about Rubisky. He wasn't as bad as you all made him out to be at the time. He wasn't great. I couldn't stand him. But he wasn't as bad as you all made him out to be.
Chris Palmer, man, I forgot about him.
It was hard, like, on the fly without having written it down, thinking in my head, like, who all were the Titan offensive coordinators. But I don't think there's any doubt that Arthur's the top, Les Steckel second, Heimerdinger third, and then everybody else
just
sucked.
bad.
Everybody sucked. LaFleur was awful. All right, let's take your phones. Here's the question. 615-737-1025. Fitz thinks Todd Downing sucks. I mean, he is ready to put all his chips in the middle and say Downing sucks. Caroline leaning against. Ian, the strongest I have ever heard him about anything is about his feelings towards Todd Downing. So, your thoughts. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, and we'll get to those next. 615-737-1025. And to Caroline's point, I'm a little surprised at how down Ian is on Todd Downing. And I'm a little surprised how neutral I am on Todd Downing.
I know. This is a weird day.
It's wild. Speaking of wild, the UCF fight, the boxing match on Sunday is going to be wild. Let me tell you about my friends at FanDuel Sportsbook app. Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder are back in the ring Saturday as they compete their epic trilogy. That's right, FanDuel Sportsbook is giving new customers 30-1 odds on either fighter to win. So now is the perfect time to give FanDuel a shot because you can win $150 on a $5 bet. I saw the second fight. It wasn't close. Fury annihilated him. With FanDuel Sportsbook in your corner, you'll always get exclusive odds boosts, great promotions, and so much more. That's why they're America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up with the promo code JGM to get in on all the action. That's promo code JGM. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. New users only. $10 first deposit required. Must wager in a designated offer market. Max bonus $150. Bonus for Tennessee users fulfilled in site credit within 72 hours. Tennessee site credit expires 14 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
What adjustments did you make along the way to help pass protection in that game?
Yeah, we certainly tried to get to some things that would get the ball out a little bit quicker, that we could get some man-to-man beaters and try to get some, picks and rubs and things of that nature going. Obviously, you guys saw that we went to quite a few screens as well, try to get the ball out in the screen game. And so, always looking for ways to try to be able to help if we're having a rough go of it.
That was Todd Downing, Titans offensive coordinator, asked about the adjustments. He said those were the adjustments he made. Good enough for you, Ian?
Borderline.
So Ryan Porth texted me and said, Todd Downing is not good. I agree with Ian. Not enough in-game adjustments. What do you guys know about adjustments?
What do you know about adjustments?
I don't know anything. That's why I'm not complaining about it.
Well, it just felt like the same thing was happening over and over and over again.
I mean, that's the one thing that I feel like, like Floyd used to always say, you don't know if it's pumped or stuffed. And I feel like And I don't even know if that's something you can say on the radio, honestly. I have no idea.
We've probably said a lot of things that we shouldn't say on the radio the past few days.
This has been a wild week. But that was always the thing that he would say is like, oh, yeah, well, you don't know if it's pumped or stuffed.
Well, to Ian's point, I mean, I don't need to know exactly the nitty-gritty details of exactly what adjustments they would make, but when you're seeing the same mistakes over and over
you just want to see an adjustment where the ball
again,
goes into the receiver's hands and into the end zone for a touchdown.
is that so much to ask? Like, is that so much to ask?
He put it in Josh Reynolds' hands and he dropped it. He put it in Ferguson's hands.
That is not a Todd Downing thing. I don't think anyone is going to blame Todd Downing on Josh Reynolds just in his hands, like ball, silver platter, touchdown, you drop it. But to Ian's point, there are a lot of mistakes that are being made over and over again.
I mean, it's like when I hear people who don't know anything about radio talk to me about radio. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, this Jets game was tough on him without his receivers, without having Julio and AJ in the game. I'll give him that. I mean, that's tough.
See, I'm not even making excuses for him there because it's the freaking Jets.
That's
and
true.
This is the
but
NFL.
I mean, there's I mean, Cameron Batson, they tried to throw a deep ball. Just his size is a liability. Obviously, Josh Reynolds' hands 50-50.
I thought LaFleur was a lot worse. I thought LaFleur was a lot worse than Downing. And he's the head coach.
After 4 games, could you tell? Did it take just the Henry situation?
I mean, that bothered me, but I just never felt like the offense ever had any rhythm under LaFleur. They had no identity when LaFleur was the coach. Remember, they brought him in to turn Marcus into like this quick strike quarterback, which he never was. But they tried to do that. I just need more time with Downing and more. Now, TD texted me, and I think this is a fair point. TD says the Titans offense is down to 23.8 points per game from 30 points a game last year, almost a full touchdown.
I mean, I think Arthur Smith was really creative in the red zone. And
I think Arthur's a great coach.
That Batson touchdown was a nice wrinkle. That felt like a nice red zone wrinkle this past week. That Batson touchdown, that little kind of, jet sweep, throw it to him. That was a good, because in the red zone, you're going to have to get creative like that, especially against a good red zone team like the Jets. And it was almost, you could almost count on Arthur Smith in the red zone pulling up some kind of wacky play that it was, whether it was a jump pass or some type of something. And so maybe Todd Downing has his hands cut out just because Arthur Smith was that good. So maybe we have some unfair expectations.
Well, here's the other thing that I brought up at the very beginning of this. I think if there's any defense of Todd Downing, they don't have a starting tight end. Think of every good team the Titans have ever had. Ever. Frank Wycheck, Aaron Kinney, Bo Scaife, Algie Crumpler, who could not fumble in the playoffs, but Algie Crumpler was a pretty good tight end. Delaney Walker, Jonnu Smith. Like, they've had a starting tight end who was good on every good Titans team that they have ever had. The best Titans teams, and we know that the best Titans teams were the beginning Fisher teams that had Frank Wycheck, and these last couple teams, the last couple years, that had Delaney Walker and Jonnu Smith. They don't have a starting tight end. So it's like, wow, the red zone is really down. Wow, they can't find guys open. That was when they threw the ball to Jonnu. And you watch the Patriots, and they don't even use Jonnu like that. They don't even need Jonnu. They might as well just give you Jonnu. But it's crazy. But, like, people just totally forget about that. And I don't even think Jonnu Smith was that good. Like, I wouldn't have paid Jonnu Smith the kind of money they paid Jonnu Smith, but he was a starting tight end. And you don't have a starting tight end. You have a bunch of practice squad guys at tight end. And so you're trying to go into the red zone and use the Arthur Smith scheme, and you don't have any tight ends. And poor Luke Steckel, who's coaching him up, I mean, they're not even giving him chicken. They're not giving him anything. I mean, it's like, to me, that bothers me so much. And because I cried about it all summer that they don't have a tight end. I'm like, they don't have a tight end, and nobody listened. I wrote I'm not even going to go this far. But I would just say that whenever Father's Day was,
June.
I was concerned significantly about their tight end.
June.
Yes. Like underlined in a memo. Underlined it.
Tight end.
Don't have a tight end, and Ferkser is not a starter. Underlined. I think I underlined it. I don't know.
Well, in your mind, you made it.
615-737-1025. I see you lined up. We'll write to your phones, your calls, and your text. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company right here on ESPN 1025 The Game. And by the way, it is very not normal that I'm the one who is defending the coach against literally everybody. But I feel like I have to. 1025 The Game has your chance to win Preds tickets during the month of October. Just post a picture of your radio dial set to 1025 The Game on social media, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and tag the game and use the hashtag TicketDash to be instantly qualified to win. Show us your dash, brought to you by Social Furniture. Support local, support social.
How are things coming along as far as you and Coach Todd, as far as what's up this week, what's not? You guys sorting through the plays and just figuring out what's good for the week.
Yeah, it's been great. Just working with Todd on game plans. Presenting ideas and then making adjustments off of those, and trying to find ways to continue to play good football. So, love the way our relationship is progressing, and look forward to it continuing to progress.
There you go, Ryan Tannehill doing his best at saying nothing. Thought to the phones.
To the phones.
615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com discussing whether or not Todd Downing's any good. Daniel is going to kick us off. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Daniel.
How you doing?
Good.
I was just wondering why we're so against bringing Delaney Walker back if we need a tight end that bad.
So I am very anti-Delaney. Thank you for your call, Daniel. And I mean this as in I love Delaney Walker. Delaney Walker is one of my all-time favorites, mainly because he made me richer, but also because I always enjoyed talking to him, and he was a great Titan.
How did he make you richer?
I guess he had an endorsement deal with Pepsi.
And that thing that you did with him?
And we would do a bunch of Q&As for Pepsi.
Gotcha,
and
okay.
So I would just get like a $10.99 every time and just do the Delaney Walker
I didn't know
thing.
if Delaney was giving you an allowance.
No, you see that elliptical that's in there in the workout room?
Delaney paid for that?
I guess in a roundabout way.
Well, thanks, Delaney.
I wanted to get an elliptical.
Body by Delaney Walker.
This is when I moved into my first house, the first Green Hill studio.
Uh-huh.
And I went. I wanted to buy an elliptical for my house, and I didn't want to pay for one.
Fair.
And so I had gone, looked at the ellipticals, and, they try to sell me on, like, the nicest model. Look at it, whatever. But I knew which one I wanted. And then I did a Q&A with Pepsi with Delaney, and I went and bought an elliptical.
There you go.
So there you go.
Thank you, Delaney.
And then, I got to do the NFL draft stuff with him, and I don't know. I had a lot of fun with Delaney. Delaney's not a starting tight end at this point in his career. He's not one of the 32 best tight ends at this point in his career. And I mean no disrespect to Delaney because, again, Delaney was a great Titan. And when it comes to the Ring of Honor and from this era, I think that Jarrell Casey and Delaney Walker are the two guys that I think were probably the best Titans of the bad days. Mm-hmm. And now, Derrick Henry is obviously the best Titan of this era. But I certainly don't want to forget about Delaney's place in it. I just don't think Delaney solves the issue that you need right now, which is an every down, every game tight end. He's just not that anymore. That's like saying, well, why don't we bring back Frank Wycheck? Well, I just don't think that's a good idea. Though I do love Frank, too. What do we got the text line?
One texter texts in and says, what happened to all the talk about Anthony Ferkser being an elite pass-catching tight end?
That came from Delaney. That didn't come from this show.
And when Delaney said that, I think this show was awfully puzzled.
Skeptical,
I think is fair to say.
So, yeah, no, I don't think these are practice squad guys. I'm sorry.
I think Anthony Ferkser's a practice squad guy. I don't think I would go that far.
Anthony Ferkser came from the practice squad.
Well, okay.
Let me ask you this. If you released Anthony Ferkser today, how many teams would put in a claim?
I would be shocked if any did.
That kind of makes you a practice squad guy.
You don't think anybody would put in a claim for him?
I think that Ferkser is as good as Pruitt, though they do different things. And nobody was interested in Pruitt when the 49ers let him go.
I think it would have to be a team that was getting injured at the tight end position, that just needed depth at that tight end.
Who's the best tight end on the Titans?
Through
the games that you've seen.
Michael Pruitt.
Ian?
Not Swaim.
Well, definitely not Swaim. He sucks.
With Ferkser being injured, I guess you have to go with Pruitt.
And he was literally on your practice squad 3 weeks ago.
It's not good.
They don't have a tight end?
I'm not arguing that the Titans don't have a tight end. The Titans need some serious work at the tight end position.
This reminds me before they drafted Nate Davis in the 2019 draft. And they go in, and there were a handful of offensive linemen. The Titans were picking 19th. Mm-hmm. And there were a handful of offensive linemen that you thought might be there. Like there was a kid from Boston College who was a really good center that they thought they could move out to guard. And Floyd just kept banging the table. Right guard, right guard, right guard. He's like, we don't have a right guard. They draft Jeffrey Simmons. The next day, he's got listed his list of all the centers and guards. And every time that one came off the board in the second round, because we did the second round, and I think the second crew did the third round. And every time one came off the board, you'd hear like, God, like the Saints draft, Eric McCoy. Oh, God. Oh. Like every time we were doing the draft show. He's like, we don't have a right guard. And he just kept saying it over and over again. And so when they didn't get a tight end in the draft, after they didn't get a tight end in free agency, I was literally like, they don't have a tight end. And that, like, to compound matters, they don't have a right tackle. So everyone wants to crap on Todd Downing. They don't have a right tackle or a tight end. What do we have next?
Alex comments on the stream and says, I think a lot of the criticism is the same stuff Arthur got early last year. It's disappointing that Todd isn't picking up where Arthur left off, but we need to see if Todd can catch up and improve. Ian and I are both on, I think Ian maybe a little bit further along than I am, but still Ian and I are on the same scale of we're leaning away from Todd Downing, and I think that's exactly the reason why I'm not totally out on Todd Downing, is that, to be fair, he does need time. And I think it's a little bit too early to be completely out on Todd Downing. But also, I did say 4 weeks for this team, and we're 4 weeks in.
Yeah, but like for a coordinator who's never called plays for you before?
And that's exactly why I'm giving Todd Downing the benefit of the doubt here.
I mean, I'm not here to sit there and say, well, Reynolds dropped the ball, so it's not Downing's fault, or Julio's hurt, so it's not Downing's fault, or because, like, every coordinator in the league can say those kind of things. Wisenhunt, would say those kind of things. Mm-hmm. And we know how bad Wisenhunt was. And there were some times where Downing had 5 guys going into the pattern. I'm like, Todd, you got to leave somebody in to protect. But I just don't think it's that egregiously bad on the Downing front.
I don't think anyone's calling it egregiously bad.
I just think a lot of people
on this show, at least.
Sure. Again, they don't have a tight end. I like what's crazy about this is how many times over the last 6 months have I said that exact sentence? They don't have a tight end.
Pushing maybe 1,000.
Like, and I feel like that just has never gotten through to anybody. Like when they traded for Julio, and I'm like, they don't have a tight end. Everyone's like, so? It's like, dude, it's a position in the NFL.
And everyone else has one.
Like, it's like long snapper. You don't have to have the best long snapper.
But
you have to have a long snapper. You have to have a starting caliber long snapper. If you don't have one of the best 32 long snappers in the league and the ball's going over your punter's head every time, you will lose every game. Just ask the New York Giants in 2003 what it's like to not have a long snapper. And they signed Trey Junkin, who stunk. And in the last game of the year...
More like Trey Stunkin.
Oh, he stunk. And all of a sudden, he's trying to snap in the playoffs, and they blow this game to the 49ers because the punter is running around with the football like, I don't know what to do, and tries to throw it to an offensive lineman in the end zone. It's just reckless.
The Canadian Titan texts in. I want to get your thoughts on this, and says, if the Titans players hold on to the ball and block better, are we even discussing Downing? I think the players have to play up to the standard that is expected of them before we can say Downing isn't doing a good enough job.
I mean, I still can't say, though. Like, the one thing I don't like is the players have to play better. It's not the coach's fault. It's coach's job to get the players to play better.
I think it's a little bit of both.
It's the coach's job to get the players to play better. That is the Kevin Stallings defense. It's not my fault. It's the players' fault. Well, what's your job? To make the players play good. Mm-hmm. So I don't ever feel in that regard. Headlines with Caroline. We'll hit them next. 615-737-1025. It is Stillman and Company on ESPN 1025 The Game.
Reyes on 2-1. Taylor. Fly ball to left and deep and gone! Chris Taylor, a walk-off home run. The Dodgers are walking off to San Francisco. They win the wild card 3-1.
There you go. I'm sorry about that, Caroline.
In my own segment.
That is true.
That's just salt in the wound.
That's just a tough one. I got to say this. That what was once a very anti-baseball show, for no doing of our own. It's all baseball's fault. It was not us. But
it's all the players' fault. It's not my fault.
Oh, yeah, not the coach's fault.
Yeah.
But just, this was never a pro baseball show. Mainly in large part because Floyd hated baseball.
Yeah.
Ian, do you think Floyd would have enjoyed these last two games?
Floyd talking baseball was the best.
Oh, man.
Hated
What
it.
did he think about it?
He hated baseball.
Hated
Why?
it.
Thought it was boring. I think part of it, too, was like...
Hum babe, hum ball, something like that.
He used to always say, I don't want to watch a guy over there scratch himself. Oh, hum babe, hum ball. Ball one. That used to be kind of his thing. I think part of it, too, was when he first got here. He had to talk a lot of baseball, and I don't think he was very interested in that. And so I think he, resented baseball. Like, he blamed baseball for the fact that he had to talk a lot of it when he first got here, or was a part of discussions where they talked a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he never said this to me. I'm just assuming. But he was very anti-baseball.
Which is so funny because I feel like that generation loves
Oh,
baseball.
he talked about, I used to love
baseball.
the Giants back in the day with Orlando Cepeda and Willie McCovey and Willie Mays, and oh, my God. And, but, yeah, no, he hated baseball.
That's so funny.
I guarantee you the conversation would have been, did you watch baseball game last night?
Nope.
No. Time now for headlines with Caroline.
We're spanning the sports world. It's Headlines with Caroline on Stillman and Company, right here on Nashville's best sports talk,
ESPN
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Headlines presented by Fiero Tequila, the spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave.
This story is wild. 18 former NBA players have been charged with defrauding the NBA's health and welfare benefit plan of about $4 million. So these 18 players submitted in their day of playing. It started in 2009 and extended all the way through 2020. So these 18 former players submitted false and fraudulent claims to get reimbursed for medical and dental expenses that they never actually incurred. So it started with the scheme like in 2017, started with Terrence Williams, the Nets' 2009 first-round pick. He submitted a $19,000 in fraudulent claims.
Oh, my God.
For chiropractic care.
T-Will. Oh, my God.
Yeah, so
I went to college with that guy.
No, you did not.
Biggest a-hole I have ever met.
Sounds like it.
I mean, not even, kidding you guys. From the day I met him. You talk to T-Will. Oh, my goodness. T-Will.
Yeah. So... He's facing federal charges. And so these 17 other NBA players got into this whole scheme because of him. He told players, look, I got $8,000 from this thing that I submitted for this chiropractor. I got $8,000 in my pocket. You should try it too. So throughout those years,
He's
the root of a $4 million fraudulent lawsuit with the NBA.
T-Will. Okay. Y'all know the hookers in Louisville, right? The story about the hookers and the madam and the underage daughters in the dorm room and the.
Heard of it.
You want to know how they met the madam?
T-Will. That is so funny.
And I cannot be honest enough with you that Terrence Williams is one of the most condescending, rudest people I have ever met. in my entire life.
Well, if you believe in karma,
And
this
I like T-Will fine.
absolutely is karma.
Like, I say I like T-Will fine. Like,
do you?
I mean, T-Will was a good basketball player.
Uh-huh.
But he was just such an ass. I mean, just such, the worst kind of dude.
But I mean, my question here is, I have a lot of questions, but my biggest question is,
T-Will getting $4 million.
I mean, they are professional basketball players. I can only imagine that they made millions and millions of dollars. Yet they have to smuggle money out of the NBA from a fake chiropractor appointment and a fake dentist appointment? You've got to be kidding me.
What's funny about this is that the NFL's had a similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think Clinton Portis was part of a group that was involved in this.
Yeah.
Where they were getting, horse x-rays. If you x-ray a horse, it's like $100,000 to x-ray a horse.
And I'm pretty sure it's very obviously a horse.
Right.
Yeah.
But in order to x-ray a horse, it's $100,000.
Yeah.
So they were charging the NFL for stuff like that. And
no way.
Yeah, they were. So this has happened before. This is not unique to this. But the fact that it is T-Will, when you said Terrence Williams, the Nets 2009 first-round pick, I'm like, T-Will? I'm like, oh, God. I got to tell you, Terrence Williams, the biggest, most condescending jerk I have ever met. I mean, seriously, I cannot stand the guy.
Well, he may be going to prison.
Not a surprise.
Also, moving on, Green Bay Packers have reached an agreement with the former Dallas Cowboys linebacker Jalen Smith, signing with the Packers for a one-year deal. So the Cowboys kind of got the short end of the stick on that one. They are still on the hook for all of his $7.2 million base salary this year because of the veteran termination payrolls. So the Packers only have $6.5 million in cap space. That's the only way that they could have acquired Jalen Smith. So he will likely take the roster spot of outside linebacker Chauncey Rivers, so he was placed in IR after tearing his ACL on Wednesday. So Jalen Smith, former Cowboy, now heading to the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I mean, I got to know, did you see Micah Parsons' tweet yesterday?
I don't think so.
So Emmanuel Acho did, some breakdown about why getting rid of Jalen Smith is bad for the Cowboys and how it puts more on Micah Parsons' plate. And Micah Parsons,
Emmanuel Acho.
Well, he replied to Acho and was like, this is another stupid take from you don't know anything about. You need to shut up. And I was a little surprised that Parsons would go out there like that.
Right.
Because if the players were upset that you released Jalen Smith, they probably would just keep quiet.
Right.
You probably wouldn't hear him say anything. So for Parsons to do that made me think that they don't really like Jalen Smith there. But I don't know anything. I don't cover the team. I don't know the players. But I mean, just to cut a guy in the middle of the year and you're not really saving any money doing it, and you've already paid him a boatload. Usually you do that when the guy's a complete knucklehead and you just got to get him out of your locker room.
And Mike McCarthy said yesterday when they announced that they were going to release him, he said, there's a lot of reasons. There wasn't one thing that was contributed to him leaving. It was a lot of reasons, which sounds like we just don't want to tell you what it was. But also, speaking of Emmanuel Acho, did you see his tweet post-Urban Meyer video leak?
No.
He said, we need to stop getting mad at people for doing things in public that we do in private.
Fingering
putting your finger in someone's butt. Emmanuel, there are some things that need to be in private. Legally you cannot do in public.
Yeah, I mean,
that's just such a stupid thing to say.
I think people are having a hard time, with the Urban thing. The reason people are outraged about this is because Urban has lied to us for 20 years.
Yeah, this isn't
And now
new.
for the first time, it's he can be held accountable.
This isn't the first smudge on his resume.
That's we were talking about it yesterday. Michelle on the morning show was like, I didn't know that he covered up domestic abuse at Ohio State.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
he did.
Yeah. That's
and
what
also, I don't know if you know the name Aaron Hernandez, but he was involved with him too.
Yeah. He told Floyd and Bill, oh, yeah, Aaron's a good kid.
No. Okay.
Floyd told
Bristol,
Chase
Connecticut's finest.
Floyd told Chase and I on the drive from St. Louis to Kansas City for the AFC title game when we couldn't fly into Kansas City, so we had to take a Southwest flight to St. Louis, and then we had to drive. Floyd told us that the two most charming people he's ever met in his entire life were Aaron Hernandez and OJ. And that, that was...
What?
That those guys, he's they must have that dual personality or whatever, because he said both guys... I mean, OJ's, one of the greatest endorsers of products in the history of America.
Maybe second to Shaq.
No. Better than Shaq.
Really?
Yes.
Just an actor.
Made Hertz the rental car company of the 80s.
That is
OJ
crazy.
was before anything, before Michael Jordan, before Shaq, before there was OJ.
Well, Ted Bundy was pretty charming too.
This may be a trait. Like, this may be, but that was just something that he said there. I can't get over the Terrence Williams thing. I can't. He will. Oh, my goodness.
And a little bit of a sadder note, Montreal Canadiens goaltender Carey Price has left the team voluntarily, so he will enter the NHL Player Assistance Program.
Oh, no.
All the team said he's not doing well right now. They expect him to come back this season, but they're going to ease him back into the lineup once he's ready. And the team said we can expect him to be away for a minimum of 30 days, but we'll ease him back in. But his wife posted a pretty lengthy post on Twitter, just essentially saying, we appreciate everyone in the community, and like Carey's going to take some time for his mental health, and we encourage everyone to do the same if they feel like that's what they need to do.
Best wishes.
So, yeah, best wishes to Carey Price, best wishes to his family.
He will. I mean, just defrauding the NBA. What a loser. Oh, goodness. Couldn't have happened.
$4 million.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Those are headlines with Caroline, presented by Fiero Tequila, the spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave. Coming up next, I've been a big proponent of maxing out the credit card when it comes to handing Derrick Henry the football. But some of the numbers ESPN puts into perspective on Derrick Henry might give us a little cause for concern. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. We're streaming on the Game Nashville app. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The game streaming on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Did you know there's a baseball playoff game going on right now?
I did know that. The Astros are up 3-0 last time I checked.
I did not know that.
Neither did I.
Mm-hmm. Started at 3-something.
Ian, is the game on ESPN 94.9 or no?
It is not, no.
Okay. So, like, I know baseball loves to get a bunch of games in. Like, maybe put games on, like, when people can watch them. If I had to guess.
Well, they're running on kind of a tight schedule here.
What do you mean?
We'll have Boston Rays on after us tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. So why not play the Boston and the Rays and play this game at the same time? And then you got 5,000 of
then
those. Then
why would you why would you automatically cut your audience in half?
Well, like, nobody can watch it right now.
Well, I mean, you can't watch it right now, but I feel like there are plenty of other people who can.
There's probably some truth to that. So, Bill Barnwell at ESPN wrote an article. It's at ESPN Plus. Time to sound the alarm on Ben Roethlisberger, Derrick Henry, and Miami's offense? ? So, Bill Barnwell has a breakdown of what's real and what's fake. And this says, not real. Derrick Henry's staggering workload can't continue. Barnwell writes this, quote, in 2020, the Titans gave Henry the workload of a running back from the 1970s. With 378 carries and just 19 receptions, he averaged 23.6 carries and 24.8 touches per game. Remember those numbers?
Okay.
Do you remember them?
2018.
No.
What was the other number?
23.6.
23.6.
24.8.
24.8.
Okay. While we would see running backs regularly attract that sort of workload before the past decade, they just don't get those sort of carries anymore. Henry's 2020 season was the second largest workload of the past 10 years and just the third time over that time frame that a back has topped 350 carries. Players with that sort of workload almost always decline the following season, either through injury, a decrease in playing time, or a drop-off in performance. Well, Barnwell writes, Henry isn't averaging 24.8 touches per game this season. He's averaging way more. He's nearly matched his 2020 total with 14 catches, and the Titans have handed him the ball a staggering 113 times in 4 games. So, remember the two numbers I told you to remember.
23.6, 24.8.
Okay, those are carries per game and touches per game. This year, he writes, Henry is averaging 28.3 carries per game and 31.8 touches per game.
Holy moly.
31.8. Forget the workload of the 1980s and the 1990s. He might as well be in the stratosphere. Derrick Henry is on pace for 480 carries. To put this into context, his 113 carries through the first 4 games of the season are 5th most in NFL history. The guys ahead of him are names from another era. Rodney Hampton, who I guess played in 1993. I don't know.
The Giants.
See, there you go. O.J. Simpson.
There, we know him.
Ricky Williams, Earl Campbell, Curtis Martin, Priest Holmes, and Stephen Davis. By the way, I forgot Stephen Davis existed. Are among the backs just behind Henry with seasons from the early 2000s, but this is a staggering amount of work even by Henry's recent standards. Going by history, it's a dangerous workload. If you want to put, Barnwell writes, Henry in a class with the truly rare backs and suggest that he is immune to what we know about workloads, I wouldn't blame you. I didn't expect him to keep up his 2020 workload, let alone expand it. Even Brown and Campbell came down to earth as they went from averaging 27.6 carries per game over the first 4 of a season to 20.8 over the remainder of the year. Henry might just land there, which would leave him at 383 carries by the end of 2021. The first month of the season might have been a perfect storm for the Titans. Wideouts A.J. Brown and Julio Jones got hurt. And Darrington Evans, Henry's primary backup, was on injured reserve. They should all be back in the weeks to come. Henry's workload is going to fall somewhere or from the lofty heights of September. I just hope that the incredible work he has done over the past year plus doesn't shorten his career. Are you worried about the amount of carries that Derrick Henry has been given? And are you worried about the long-term and short-term effects this will have on Derrick Henry?
I think I'm kind of looking at this through a very short-term lens, because you look at last week against the Jets. I mean, the Titans had no other starters on offense. You have to give the ball to Derrick Henry as much as you possibly can.
Sure.
And if you're looking at, if you just look at this offense as a whole.
Although McNichols got 1 carry for 11, and you have to wonder, could McNichols have gotten 3 or 4 or 5 carries?
That's true. And McNichols led the team in receptions. So, could he have played a bigger role in offense? Maybe.
Like with that ragtag group out there, I honestly think that Jeremy McNichols might be the second best offensive skill player behind Derrick Henry.
On the field last week or on the Titans roster?
On the field last week. Like, think about
I think
guys you want with the ball in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Henry 1. Like, if this were normal, Henry 1, AJ 2, Julio 3, and then, whatever. Chester Rogers maybe 4.
Maybe.
So it's like, okay, who would you rather have the ball in their hands, Chester Rogers or McNichols? I think I'd rather go with McNichols.
Last week, McNichols. Josh Reynolds dropped the ball. So I'm looking at it through a short-term lens where I understand the concern for Derrick Henry's workload. I understand that down the line, this may put Derrick Henry in an uncomfortable position, therefore putting the Titans in an uncomfortable position. But right now, if the Titans feel like that's the best way that they can get this team to win, which, as we've seen, when Derrick Henry goes off, barring the Jets game, he ran for 150 yards, Titans still lost. But when Derrick Henry goes off, this team goes off. So I'm looking at right now, I'm not concerned about it, but I do think that it may be a difficult situation that they're posed with down the line.
Ian, are you worried about Derrick Henry's workload?
Yes, I am. I
think I'm with Ian.
Yeah, I'm starting to get there. Unless even if they ramp it back significantly, they're only winning games right now or close to being in games right now, but pretty much because of him.
Yeah.
And if they continue to roll it back, because it's unsustainable. I could only imagine how he must have felt after this past week.
He hasn't even practiced these 2 days this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't practice at all, which is fine. He obviously doesn't really need it, but I am worried, yeah.
But your body shouldn't be at a point where you physically cannot practice.
After 4 weeks.
So I think a couple of things here. First off, I think the Titans are doing nothing to help themselves out, as a group. I don't think the defense helps the offense out because the defense doesn't get any turnovers. I don't think the offense is helping the defense out. You score a couple of touchdowns. You make the Jets incredibly one-dimensional on Sunday. You make Zach Wilson go and chuck the ball, but you can't get in the end zone and you can't score. And I think the Titans' special teams, outside of maybe Chester Rogers as a punt returner, is completely non-existent.
They love to talk about complimentary football.
Oh, we haven't heard that term from Vrabel in forever. But they're not playing it at all right now. So you're not getting short fields. You're not getting, and because of that, you're not blowing anybody out. So if you are blowing out the Colts on Sunday the way you should have blown out the Colts 2 weeks ago, then Jeremy McNichols can get the ball more at the end of the game because you're blowing them out. And you can take Derrick out a little bit. And if you score touchdowns on the Jets early in the game, you can take Derrick out. And you can give Jeremy McNichols more than 1 carry for 11 yards. And so I think that's part of the problem is right now, if he's not in there, they can't move the football. And so it's like, what do you do? Because if you are worried about his workload right now and you take him out against Jacksonville and you say, well, hey, Derrick can only touch it 18 times this game because we can't have Derrick touch it 30 times a game. And we're worried about a long season. So Derrick only gets it 18 times. Well, now you're giving the ball to Jeremy McNichols, and you might lose to Jacksonville. Well, you can't lose to Jacksonville. Oh, my God, you might get fired. But I also think that it's a little ridiculous to suggest that the idea that Derrick Henry can carry the ball 500 times and there not be an adverse effect is a little far-fetched. So I would liken this to innings with a baseball pitcher where – all these gurus tell you, hey, a guy can only pitch so many innings, and then we got to shut him down for the year. And then you get to the major leagues, and you get to moments like this in October, and it's like pitch, pitch, pitch. Come back on 1 day's rest, pitch. Whatever, just pitch, because this is what it's all about. And I think there are some guys that just don't get hurt in baseball, like other guys that every time they throw the ball, you hold your elbow in sympathy for their elbow because it's like you can see the Tommy John just getting ready to happen. And I watch Derrick, and I don't feel like Derrick looks like he's slow to step from all the carries he's taken over the last 2 years, or that Derrick is not the force that he's been or anything like that. I guess I'm just a little worried that I just don't think you can hand him the ball 500 times and expect Derek to be the same Derek for forever. But then I also tell myself, well, you're only going to be good for as long as he's good. So if you're trying to save him for next year or save him for the year after that, then you're not going to be any good this year. And who cares if you're not any good this year about if you're good next year? So, I think this is an incredible conundrum that the Titans find themselves in.
Well, and I hear you talk about maxing out the credit card, and
Yep.
I think that's fair because what's the window? What's Tannehill's window?
It's as long as Derrick Henry's good. Now, it may be shut even with Derrick Henry being good, but it is the window for the
window is closing. And will this make the window close sooner? Maybe.
Well, the window's closing because you can't draft.
And their offensive line, and there's just a lot of age and injury issues with the team in general.
Oh, Charles Robinson said on Robbie and Rex Road that he thinks that at the end of the year, the Titans are going to have to completely redo the offensive line on the fly.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, think about it this way.
Lawan.
You're going to cut
Jones.
Lawan. You're going to cut Saffold. Jones is a free agent. So you're stuck with Davis and Quessenberry, and Quessenberry's not a starter in the NFL. So you got one starter in Nate Davis at the end of the year. Now, you got about $30 million in cap space to play with because you cut the other two guys. But it's going to be a lot to do. I mean, how do you go out and get 4 starters on your offensive line in an offseason?
You can't.
You want to draft one in the first round?
Well,
We've already tried that. You want to draft one in the second round?
The Raiders did.
I mean, yeah, the Raiders got rid of a Pro Bowl center who's now the center for the Arizona Cardinals. Might be the best team in football. 615-737-1025. Here's the question. Are you worried about Derek's workload? Again, this is a workload that they have never seen before, or at least not since 1930 have they seen a workload the level of Derrick Henry, including last year where his workload was less. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And coming up next, do you think they need to limit the workload? We'll get to your phones on it. Stillman and Company right here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Let me tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I have been telling you guys about Hiller for forever now, almost 3 years, I think over 3 years. And it's because Hiller does a fantastic job of taking care of my home. So I would never let anybody else come into my home and touch my HVAC unit or my plumbing or anything, because every time Hiller comes in, they do a bang-up job. You've noticed all the inventory shortages and empty shelves everywhere. Now, there are serious shortages on equipment and products for your home. HVAC systems, tankless water heaters, and generators are going to be extremely limited in 2022. If you need a replacement, call our friends at Hiller today. Don't wait until you are out of options. Hiller has special financing available, so you buy now and you pay nothing until next year. Their work is backed by the Happy You'll Be Your Services Free guarantee, and you can learn more at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Predators, the Vols, and the Vanderbilt Commodores. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Is there anything you're doing different this year, just as far as like the recovery process with I know the workload is something you kind of laugh off, but is there anything that you're doing different just to be able to recover from that workload?
No, I'm really just doing the same things and keeping my body ready. Haven't really changed up too much, and just continue those same things.
How does your routine go? Like, is there a lot of like hot tub, cold tub, that type of?
Cold tub, hot tub, massage, ART, dry needling, cryo, the whole nine. Anything I can do to get my body ready, I'm gonna try it.
So that was Derrick Henry talking about all the work that he does to get his body ready. We had a conversation off air about Derrick Henry's diet.
Yeah.
Do you think Derrick Henry has a clean diet?
No.
Ian, do you think Derrick Henry has a clean diet?
You mean like doesn't eat a lot of junk?
Right.
Probably, yeah.
I don't buy it.
I think Derrick could eat Fritos every day and look exactly like Derrick.
Yeah.
He does work out enough, but
And plus he's a genetic freak. I mean, I think there's...
I mean, I know we use this, like, ironically, but, like, he quite literally is built different.
Yes.
Same with Aaron Donald.
Yes.
But I think Aaron Donald eats cleaner than Derrick Henry. I don't know why.
I mean, that's really judgmental of two people that you don't know.
I know, but I just get the vibe. Maybe it's because he's in L.A.
Maybe. You know, Jarrell Casey was a vegan.
Really? Interesting.
Interesting stuff. Is Derrick Henry carrying the football too much? And I will put it with this caveat before we go to your phones. Would you consciously give Jeremy McNichols the football on Sunday against Jacksonville? Not start him or anything crazy like that, but would you work McNichols into the running game to take the load off of Derrick?
Yes. If the game is in a manageable place. Because how many times have we said how detrimental it would be if the Titans lost this game?
17-10 Titans, third quarter, 4 minutes to go. Derrick's already carried it 19 times.
I would give Jeremy McNichols more touches, yes.
Ian, would you limit Derrick Henry's workload?
this week, Jacksonville's defense is not as good as the Jets.
That's true.
So maybe. I think the key here, though, is Darrington Evans.
I'm so out on Darrington. I mean,
I know it's hard
I give him another chance,
yeah,
but
it's hard to rely on him. But I think that's who they want to give the carries to.
And if he's healthy,
and if he's back from IR and he can play, give him 10 touches.
I know, but isn't there a chance McNichols is better than him?
Than Darrington Evans?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Evans will get every chance to be the backup runner.
I think Evans might be a better running back.
I mean, I'll say this about practice. They didn't really have Derrick practice at training camp or anything. Mm-hmm. Evans was the starter until the first preseason game when he got hurt.
Yeah.
Here's what I was thinking about. Titans, and I don't think they do this, but you have to win this game this week against the Jags. So you max out the credit card with Derrick this week. Then you get an extra day before you play Buffalo on Monday night. You play Derrick as long as the game is close. If Buffalo pulls away or you pull away, Derrick's out.
Mm-hmm.
Then you play Kansas City. Same thing. Then you play the Colts. Derrick plays the whole game. Then you play at the Rams. You play at the Saints. You play at the Texans.
You can sit him in either of those NFC games.
I wonder if you sit him the Rams game. On the road, Los Angeles. And I mean, can you imagine going up to Derrick Henry and saying, hey, we're going to hold you out of this Sunday night football game against the Rams because it's an NFC game, and NFC games aren't as important as AFC games. And here we are right now at 6-3, and we just think it's best for you to take this NFC game on Sunday night football off.
Do you think he'd be pissed?
Yes.
I think so too. But I think you also have to look at it in a way of like this, like, we need you moving forward. We need you in the playoffs, and we have been utilizing you too much. And if we get any opportunity, because going on the road at Los Angeles, the Rams look like a darn good team. I don't know if the Titans have a great chance of winning that game.
Here's the game I would sit them, though. Thursday night, and again, the whole season may dictate this. Like, if you're neck and neck, you can't take Derrick out of a game. If, like, making the playoffs or being, the third seed instead of the fourth seed, if it is bent on you winning every game, I don't know if you can take Derrick out. But the game I think you got to sit him is the Thursday nighter at home against the 49ers. Because that's an NFC game on a short week, late in the season on December 23rd. So right around Christmas time, you got a Thursday nighter against the 49ers. That's the game I think I'd probably take Derrick Henry out of.
And I do wonder if Vrabel will approach Derrick Henry in those NFC games the same way that he approached Bud Dupree. What was that, against Indianapolis?
Where he left him
Emergency
available, but he
situations only. So you are available to play. You are dressed on the sidelines, but you're not taking every snap. You're really only going in if we need you to go out there. I think that might be the best way to go about it. Just limit his carries, limit his touches, but have him out there if you absolutely need him. Because the worst situation that you want to be in is that you're at Los Angeles and you are neck and neck with the Rams and you don't have Derrick Henry for those really clutch situations.
The other thing, too, is I feel like they are going to have to get some pass catchers back before they can feel like they can lighten Derrick Henry's load at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
615-737-1025. Let's go to your phones. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Jack from Dixon texts in and says, what are the better odds? Derrick Henry reaches the Hall of Fame as the first Titan, or the Titans reaching the Super Bowl in the next few years?
Hall of Fame.
So, yeah, and so he says, give him the rock.
Yeah, but and I'll say this. I think Vrabel cares about that kind of stuff. I know that
personal achievements.
Coaches, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Vrabel went out of his way the last 2 years to get Derrick the rushing title. And last year, I think he went out of his way to get Derrick 2,000 yards. Derrick rushed it 30 times against the Texans last year for 250 yards to get to 2,000. It wasn't like Derrick ran for 118 and got 2,000. I mean, they went out of their way to get Derrick to 2,000. I think Vrabel values those things because he understands how hard it is to accomplish. So when he sees a guy on the cusp of doing something great, he wants to push that guy ahead to the finish line so that he can have that achievement because it is something that you live with for forever, and no matter what, they can't take away from you. At the same time, though, I don't think Vrabel wants to get into the playoffs and not have Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Or next season, have Derrick Henry running at 2 yards a clip because he can't get to the hole anymore because he's too old and beaten down. And I think that scares Vrabel to death.
But I also have to think about, too, because I hear you, and I always am concerned about the NFL lifespan of a running back, but also Derrick Henry. I've said it a couple minutes ago. I'll say it again. He's built different. And I think he can take a little bit more of a beating than your average running back.
So, I mean, I didn't
Not that
think
you want to do that.
I didn't think Tom Brady would be this good at 44.
Right.
So there are freaks that are just oh, well, we've never seen that before, and we'll never see it again. You will never see a quarterback, in my opinion, that is this good at 44 years old for the rest of our lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
Brady's just different. Maybe you're right. Maybe Derrick's just different.
I don't think he's going to be running back till he's 44 years old.
No, but maybe Derrick can be a really effective running back until he's 30.
Have a longer and more successful career than your typical running back.
Right, like than Eddie. You know, where Eddie, when it was time, Eddie was time. What's next?
Tom texts in and says, I don't think there's any way you would sit a healthy Derrick Henry out for a game or use him for emergency backup. I couldn't see him sitting on the sideline for three quarters and then go, okay, I'll get out there. I think that's an injury waiting to happen. Hello, hamstring.
They did that with Derrick Henry. First of all, every player's got to be ready to play no matter what. So you can say, oh, I wouldn't do that to Derrick Henry, but you're going to go ahead and do that to Mekhi Sargent. And I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is when you put Mekhi Sargent in the game, you expect Mekhi Sargent to go out there and play.
Right, in the third quarter.
Right.
Torrey Carter, he's been standing on the sidelines the whole time.
Yes. That having been said, I mean, they've already sat Henry for a game before. They sat him for the Saints game when the hamstring was sore. They sat him because the Saints game didn't have a lot of playoff implications. Bless you.
Thank you.
And they sat him in that game, and it ended up being the right move because when they got to the playoffs, Derrick was back to being Derrick. Now, it's funny because Derrick had a big run against the Ravens in the playoffs, and Floyd told me after the game, he's like, I think his hamstring's still wrong. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, Derrick Henry does not let Marcus Peters catch him if he is going full blast. And that told me, Derrick's not 100% here. So Derrick is Superman. Yes. But.
Adam in Portland texts in and says, I'm worried, but I'm also not worried. Derrick Henry is probably the most fit person in the entire NFL, so I know he will be in shape to do whatever we need. But I am worried that we are going to see a slight dip in production from possibly the best running back of our era and someone in the league has never seen before. There's no one like Derrick Henry and never been anybody like him. He's tougher than all of our offensive linemen, and that's a problem.
So I'll say this about Derrick Henry, and we always talk about the Hall of Fame. What does Derrick got to do this? Does Derrick have to do that? If Derrick is truly the freak that everybody is banking on, that like, hey, I know nobody else in the history of the NFL can do this stuff, but Derrick can, then he's going to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And he might be able to do this stuff. Like the idea that you could give to Derrick 500 times this year. Derrick rushed for 2,100 yards. You go to the playoffs. Derrick gets in the playoffs. You come back to training camp next August. Derrick doesn't practice. You get out on the field. Derrick's back to running for 125 yards.
And he's back on pace for another 2,000-yard season.
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's just nobody else can do it.
Nobody else has done it.
Then again, the 25-game period that Derrick Henry, and I'm sure that this is now continued because he only had 150 yards last week. The 25-game period that Derrick Henry was on was the greatest 25-game period in the history of the NFL. So maybe Derrick is the one guy to do it. I'm not saying he can't. Just like maybe Brady is the guy to be able to play this way at 44. It's like all these, the Seth Wickersham book is talking about Belichick. And, Belichick wanted to move on from Brady because he was 42. Like, guys, it's not a surprise that Bill Belichick thought, look, man, Tom's not going to be that good at 44.
He is.
He's not like, that's why we all wanted Tannehill, was because we thought Tom was old. If they were the same age, we'd all said Brady over Tannehill.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That's why I wanted Tannehill's 32, Brady's 43. Like, problem solved. Brady wins Super Bowl. Okay, well, guess we were wrong.
Yeah.
Because he's the greatest who ever played the game. And when you're the greatest who ever played the game, there's certain things you can do and get away with that other people can't. 615-737-1025. We got a great Thursday night football matchup tonight. A great one. Seahawks and Rams. I got a thought on that I want to get to. Because I do wonder, and again, I'm not trying to be anti-Titans over here, but there is something about tonight's game that does bother me about the Titans. We'll get to that coming up next. Speaking of the Titans, be sure to join us for the pregame show. That's right, on Sunday, 9:30, we'll be live at the Corner Pub out in Bellevue. Chris Sanders, Jared Stillman, Mark Howard breaking down the Titans and the Jags. I got a funny story to tell about the pregame show in just a second, by the way. Again, join us out there, the Corner Pub in Bellevue, 8058 Highway 100, prior to the Titans and the Jags. The pregame show is brought to you by TriStar Moving, Parman Tractor and Equipment, FreedomTireGuys.com, FanDuel, E2 Roofing, Hillside Medical, Social Furniture, and Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. So we all got an email before the season about, which corner pub we'd be at or rock bottom for the pregame shows.
Right.
And which one it would be. And, again, like a lot of times you get an email, you just kind of move on from it. So before we wrapped up the show on Sunday, I was like, all right, be sure to join us next Sunday at 9:30 live from the Corner Pub in Bellevue where we'll be breaking it down. And then, yesterday, Chris Sanders texted me. He's like, hey, are we at the same one we were at the other? Chris, I said at the end we were at.
Well, Chris has got a lot of stuff going on.
Clearly, Chris is tuning me out, which I don't think surprises anybody. I love Chris Sanders. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, delivered by TriStar Moving. Let me tell the fine folks out there, silly underdog picks. Pick 3 football underdog teams you think will win this week for a chance to win. Go to thegamenashville.com for more details to play. Silly underdog picks brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. By the way, let me say this. I was talking to a buddy last night who's a big South Carolina fan. And he was like, are you gonna watch the game on Saturday with us? I was like, I don't know, sure, yeah. And he's like, I think we got a shot to beat Tennessee. I was like, I'm not going to go that far now.
I don't know about that.
And he was like, no. Like, I think we got a shot to beat Tennessee. And I was
for
like,
sure.
And then I was thinking to myself today, I'm like, is it wild that the Vols are playing a game where it's like, oh, no, everybody got to calm down. The Vols will not lose this game. Whereas normally it feels like the other way around where I feel like I have to tell people, hey, I know they're playing Florida. Everybody calm down. They're not going to win
Florida.
This game.
I mean, it kind of is.
It's a little weird.
I mean, but it's also South Carolina, so I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves.
Like, I think South Carolina is truly awful.
But I think that shows some serious growth.
Like, I can watch South Carolina when they're not awful. Like, I can't watch, like, Big Ten football.
Like Steve Spurrier, South Carolina was so fun.
Sure.
They beat Clemson every year.
And I can watch that. And, like, Pete Muschamp, I can watch. I can't, like, turn on the TV to watch South Carolina.
I don't think I've watched a single South Carolina game.
I was going to say, I don't think I've watched a second of South Carolina football this year. And I do not regret it.
My sister says South Carolina grad and has not watched a lick of South Carolina football. I think that also might be for different reasons.
You know what else, though? You know what else, though, about your sister?
What?
Her middle name is Elizabeth.
And so is mine.
And so is your middle name.
It
just weirds me out. And I know your parents listen to the show, so they're probably listening right now.
Yes, they're probably listening right now.
It just weirds me out that during the last break, I found out that Caroline's middle name is Elizabeth, and her sister's middle name is Elizabeth, too.
And I know it's not like I know that's not a traditional thing. It's just, I just never really thought about it because it's just, I honestly, when I was a kid, I thought everyone did that. Like, it was like your last name. But I never realized it was that weird.
Because your mom's middle name's Elizabeth?
Yes.
And all your cousins' names are Elizabeth?
Yep.
Like,
middle names. All of her middle names.
Like, that is eye-opening.
Thank you for choosing a nicer word than you were initially going to say.
That is, I'm not used to that.
It is not normal.
It's new for me.
It's not normal, but it's just like our thing, I guess. I don't know.
So, anywho, I told my buddy, I was like, I don't know about that. He's like a big South Carolina. No, come over for the game. But I'm just telling you, like, I think we're going to beat
I'll be watching the game for sure.
I want to be like, no. I do want to do this.
We will be smoking a butt for the game. So if you'd like to come, you're more than welcome.
Interesting.
Invite got lost in the mail, did it?
Yeah, I think I'm busy that day. I think wrestling.
Oh, yeah, you love wrestling.
Anywho, so Thursday Night Football tonight, the Rams and the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for baseball because it's completely overshadowed by the Rams and the Seahawks,
After
which
a
is
fun
a much
week of
bigger
baseball.
game. I was thinking about this. If the Seahawks lose tonight, they are 2-3 with one of their wins being over a San Francisco 49er team that lost Jimmy Garoppolo in the middle of the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's your best win if you're a Titan fan. Like, that's the best win that the Titans have had this year. And the one thing that we bank our hats on right now about this team and the idea that they don't suck or are not average is that they went to Seattle and they beat Russell Wilson and they beat Pete Carroll and they beat the Seahawks. But if the Seahawks lose, then they're 3-2, and you could argue the worst or second to worst team in that division. And they lost to the Vikings. The only team that they beat in the Colts, and they beat the 49ers with a half of Trey Lance.
That's a crummy Vikings team, too.
That is really depressing when it comes to the Seahawks. And if the Rams blow out the Seahawks, then it's really depressing. And I think, and I can't remember, I think I picked the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl. But, like, that is depressing if they get beat by the Rams. And I know we'll pick the game in a little bit, but I think I'm leaning toward the Rams tonight. I'm excited for tonight's game.
I am for sure leaning toward the Rams tonight.
But I think I'm leaning towards the Rams.
But I think if the Rams blow out the Seahawks, then the Jets' loss is worse than the Seahawks' win was good. If you understand my logic there.
Well, I think the Jets' loss is already worse than the Seahawks win.
Oh, okay. Well, then even more so then.
Because I didn't think the Titans played very well in that game.
Well, no, they didn't. But I mean, just the impact on the schedule. Because you can't say, oh, well, we lost to the Jets, but we beat the Seahawks. We beat the Seahawks in Seattle, which is a feat on its own. But if you look at the way that the Seahawks have been playing this year, it becomes less and less of an accomplishment.
Do you think the Seahawks are bad?
I don't think they're bad. I think they are not as good as they have been in the past.
Okay. Give me your rankings of the best teams in the NFC on the spot.
Rams, I would put at 1.
Ahead of Arizona?
Oh, no. Arizona 1, Rams 2.
Which, by the way, we haven't discussed this. The Arizona loss, while it was embarrassing, is not as bad as it was when they lost it.
It's looking better and better. I don't know off the top of my head. Tampa Bay,
Green Bay. Dallas.
Are you going to put San Francisco probably after Dallas?
I think I'd put Carolina before I'd put San Francisco.
Carolina, San Francisco, New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, I can't put the Bears or the Vikings.
Minnesota after New Orleans.
I can't put those.
And then you have like Philly, Chicago, Atlanta.
Yeah, no, those are
Washington, New
so
York.
Where would you put Seattle in that grouping?
I think I would put
like Seattle Cowboys neutral field today.
I would. I might take the Cowboys. I might have to take the Cowboys. I know, but I would group Seattle in that same kind of group as like Carolina, Dallas.
Your best win is on par with Carolina.
But this is a better Carolina team than we've seen in the past.
I mean, I think so. I watched them play that Thursday night game against Houston. I think NBA could beat Houston right now.
I mean, they stomped on the Saints. And I don't really think that's saying too much either.
No. Saints lost to the Giants. That's why I always told you, like, week 1, like, you can't get caught up in September football.
Right.
Now you can get worried about October football
because
because this is where teams start to get good. I mean, again, your best win is Seattle. By far. Best win.
We only got 2 of them.
And the Colts, that Colts team you played was like a minor league.
Yeah.
So, like right now, Seattle Bengals neutral field.
Seattle.
Seattle Chargers. You're down on Seattle, aren't you?
Well,
I'm not sure their defense can stop anybody.
I mean, the Titans beat them, and we are not incredibly high on the Titans right now, and the Titans just lost to the Jets.
Seattle Steelers.
Seattle.
Painful for me to go through all of this. I mean, I still, like, one of my bigger misses in the offseason right now, and I have not watched a ton of the Rams, but one of my bigger misses is I thought that Stafford was going to be good with the Rams. I didn't think Stafford would be this good. And everybody was like, Stafford will be an MVP candidate. I'm like, all right, everybody calm down. And it looks like so far Stafford has been that way.
He and Kyler Murray are at had the best odds right now.
And for all the people out there that will say about me and Kyler, like, Jared, you said Kyler wasn't that good. What do you think? We talked at length on the show about whether or not Kyler could go out there and be a dude. So.
And he's got an insane receiving core as well.
Oh, yeah. And that defense.
And Chandler Jones.
Chandler Jones and JJ adding to that
Baker.
defense has certainly made a difference. Let's go to your phone, 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
One texter texts in and says, if we're talking about potentially benching Derrick Henry for the Bills, Chiefs, and Rams, then why do you make a move for Julio in the offseason?
Did anybody say bench him for the Bills and the Chiefs? I'm saying if the Bills game got out of hand, take him out.
Take him out. If the Chiefs game gets out of hand one way or another, take him out. The Rams game, I mean, it's an NFC game, and I understand it's an incredibly important game. But the texter goes on to say you can't set those kinds of expectations and then back out now. I don't think that's backing out necessarily. I think it's just maintaining your biggest asset.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing with Derrick Henry right now, it doesn't seem sustainable.
No.
At least to me, it doesn't seem sustainable.
And I hear people saying, we're going for it, we're going all in, we're going all in. Well, this is a 17-game season plus the playoffs. You have to be able to maintain Derrick Henry if you're going to be utilizing him like this.
You sat Derrick Henry, and it was a situation where you made the choice and Derrick was hurt. But you sat Derrick Henry in that Saints game, so he'd be good to go for the playoffs or for the next game against the Texans and then the playoffs. And Derrick Henry went out there and dominated the next 3 games. Mm-hmm. Got you to the AFC title game.
But I have no problem maxing out Derrick Henry on a game-to-game basis if that's what you need to do to win.
I don't either, except for the fact that does it hurt you down in the season? Yeah.
And that's why I wouldn't have a problem sitting him potentially in the Rams game. Because if you need him to beat the Chiefs or the Bills, then use him to beat the Chiefs or the Bills.
I just don't know if you could play him on a Thursday night in December against San Francisco after you play Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That's where I say, okay, that's the NFC game. It's a Thursday night, quick turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, Derek does some of his best work on Thursday night. We'll pick this game, the Seahawks and the Rams. Plus, we got some baseball to gamble on, and we'll do that next. Caroline's coming up. Do you want a pair of tickets to see Daughtry at the Ryman Auditorium on November 3rd? Head over to YouTube and subscribe to the 1025 The Game YouTube page, and you'll enter for your chance to see Daughtry. Once you subscribe, email us at promotions@cromwellmedia.com with your YouTube handle. One winner will be chosen on Monday, October 11th. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, baseball is on. Do we have an update on the game right now? The White Sox and the Astros?
I can give you one.
It is 6-0.
6-0 Astros?
Yep.
Dang.
That's going to be a 3 games and out.
Dang.
That's, I
And
mean.
that White Sox team has some bad boys on it.
I know, but I think they're like a year away.
Yeah.
Those guys are all young,
Mhm.
and the Astros still have the kind of their group that, has been good for a while. Anywho, tell us about Southeastern Carolines this weekend.
Southeastern Carolines this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. I will preview all the SEC games of the day. I'll give you my picks. I'll give you any advice that you may need if you want to put some money on the games. Presented by 312 Pizza Company, so come hang out. Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. I'm looking forward to Georgia on the road at Auburn. Number 2 ranked Georgia, 18 Auburn. I think Georgia's going to stomp them. But I'll give you the full breakdown Saturday morning.
Thank you.
Southeastern Carolines.
Thank you from Caroline Elizabeth II over there.
No, I'm Caroline Elizabeth I, but Elizabeth II.
The second. Time now for Carolines.
Get in on the action. Put the money on the mahogany. What's on tap on the sports books? It's time to break it all down with Carolines. Here on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Carolines is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. You can sign up at betus.com, mention game, and get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. We've got the first game of the ALDS, Red Sox Rays. The Rays on the money line, minus 160. This is a little lefty-lefty matchup today. The Red Sox are throwing out Eduardo Rodriguez.
Who sucks?
Who 13-8, 4.74 ERA and 31 starts. In his career against the Rays, he is 2-4 with a 5.21 ERA. Not great. Rays, Shane McClanahan, 10-6, 3.43 ERA and 25 starts. Against the Red Sox, he's 1-1 with a 2.81 ERA, so the Rays very much so have the pitching advantage here. The Rays lead the Red Sox in the season 11-8.
So that game, by the way, can be heard right here on 102.5 The Game, and the coverage begins at 6:30. I'm going to make a bold prediction. I don't think the Rays lose a game in the American League playoffs.
Wow.
I think they go 3-0, 4-0. I think they are so dominant. They might lose a game to the Astros. I think they are so dominant. I think they'll sweep the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox are out of gas after they, made it to the wild card.
Very emotional game against the Yankees.
And the Rays went to Yankee Stadium this weekend and just literally put their foot up the Yankees' rear end and had nothing to play for.
Yeah.
That's how good this Rays team is. I'll take the Rays on the money line as well.
We've also got a Thursday night football game. Rams on the road at Seattle. Give me the Rams minus 2.5, minus 106. I just think this Rams team has looked so incredible. I think Matthew Stafford has been a great addition for the Rams. And the Seahawks, I said it last segment, I don't think they're a bad team, but they're just not as dominant as they have been in the past.
So I think at the end of the day, now it's October football. Mm-hmm. It used to be September football. Now it's October football.
Now we mean business.
Now this is for real. I think at the end of the day, when you look at the competitors in the NFC, the Seahawks are going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be. I know, what about, is Minnesota better than them?
No.
Is San Francisco better than them?
Not
is
this
Dallas,
year.
Carolina? I think Seattle's going to be there. So I think the Seahawks win, and I think this is what I call a market correction game, where I feel like it's kind of been off a little bit, and Seattle doesn't look like the Seattle that we're used to, and there may be some issues with Seattle, but Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, the home team always has an advantage on Thursday Night Football. Always. And this is an example of that. I'm going to take Seattle plus 2.5. I think Seattle wins the game outright.
Over-under on this game is 53.5. I kind of feel compelled to take the over.
I'll take the under.
Over is minus 112, under minus 108. Anytime touchdown scorer, Cooper Kupp has the worst odds, minus 110. DK Metcalf, Darrell Henderson, plus 105. Tyler Lockett as well. Alex Collins, plus 140. Robert Woods, plus 155. Give me Tyler Lockett. Anytime touchdown scorer, plus
What's
105.
Tyler Higbee?
Tyler Higbee is... Does he still play for the Rams?
I think he does.
Yes, he does.
He's not on here.
He must be hurt.
The Rams defense. Anytime touchdown score, plus 430. That's interesting. Seattle defense, plus 370. I'm sorry. Tyler Higbee's plus 210.
Give me Tyler Higbee.
All right.
That's going to do it for us. We're out of here. Tell us about BetUS.
Carolines is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. You can sign up at betus.com, mention game, and get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit.
We're out of here. ESPN Radio comes your way next. Baseball tonight. Red Sox, Rays coverage 6:30. We'll see